Hey, we'll do it there. Then they'll kill me off and they'll just use this, We all fear that, I think. They'll just kill us off. Oh, my gosh. Woo! Actually, no, we didn't start yet.
Because I don't think I was daydreaming that he may take the potion. He doesn't. No, right. Started this semester with this shirt. Yes.
The Taming of Smeagol. Okay, where is it now? I have it marked.
Well, like,
here we go.
My son was like, what if there's one more vowel? What if there's one more vowel? I was like, there's no more vowels. Especially,
all right. Shall we begin? Shall we begin? Oh, yeah, you can look at those if we're passing them around. I guess turn to page 786. Again, awesome job on the MFA thesis. Yay! Chris, that'll be you next year. You got the reprieve this year, so you have to do it all. Good stuff. So anyway, everybody's chatty today. Everybody's chatty. Good pass around. The Wizard of Oz. There we go. Were you in it?
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. It's fun. Yep. Which? Oh my. Okay. Take out my phone.
All right, so we're talking about Winter Soldier.
Oh yes, I got one. It's been very good.
It's so good. I was telling my son
Actually,
the comic book version of Baron Zemo.
Since we have a lot of energy, I need you to do something. This is just fun, okay? This is but it's anonymous. It's anonymous. But the chair was telling me we're supposed to do these assessments to see if our students are learning anything. So please get a moment. I know, but I guess I was supposed to give this the first day of class and then the last day of class to see, but we weren't meeting the first day of class and nobody was. But anyway, this is just fun. It is anonymous. Just take a few minutes and just circle.
Oh my god! No! Oh my god! No, I know what's no, I can't do it.
So yeah,
this is the pop quiz.
Show everybody. This is for the whole group. Just circle around the right answer. Take 2 minutes. They're not.
Do you take this seriously or no?
No, take it seriously. Please take it seriously because it'll make us look like I've actually taught you something. Yeah, I know. No, because it's supposed to be anonymous.
Okay.
This is not for your grade.
No fun. So it's not grading.
So take it seriously, please, because then you will show people that we actually learn things at HBU. They have all these things called assessment that you have to do with classes in different ways. Usually we turn in essays that we, score and stuff.
Bonus points for this or something?
No, it's anonymous anyway. So just go through it and circle. Whatever answer you think is correct is just 15 questions. They're not too hard.
If we put our name on it, can you give us bonus points?
No, these are anonymous. Don't put your name on it. Just circle. That's it?
His answer already.
So, was there a mistake?
It's answered already.
Oh, that's a mistake. Yeah, don't worry, no. Yeah, I saw that. I don't know how that happened there. 12. Just ignore that. So just circle the right answer, Right, we'll turn them in. But they're anonymous. Be interesting to see what you know.
Wait, separated from the group when?
Well, the first person. Think about, the fellowship. Yeah, once the fellowship, leaves, what do you call it, Rivendell, and then they go. So who's the person?
Like emotionally leaves, or just
who actually leaves?
Or goes after a comment. There are several people who kind of leave alone.
Yeah, like actually leave.
The first one.
You think about it. Who's the first person to actually not be there?
Was physically not present.
He's thinking it through.
You didn't put that right answer.
But yeah, do a good job and show everybody that you've actually learned something in class. I like that.
I mean, in this number
First
12.
person to leave the group. So let's
Yeah.
deliberate.
But not too hard.
Right? Oh, never mind.
Not to deliberate.
Sorry.
To just
I don't think you like the regular fellowship. he does.
After I take them in, I'll tell you the answers. I think you should be able to get most of them. Think about it as we've been going through it and stuff. Yay! I'll take it. I'll get it.
But in the book, Theoden doesn't send people anywhere.
No, it's fine. It'll make you do it. Know what you know.
Yep.
Yes.
You put a
do
movie
well.
question on here.
I put a movie question?
Yeah. In the book, Theoden doesn't send his people anywhere, does he?
Oh, well. Okay. Not all of them, that's
go
true.
To Helm's, he
That's
takes
true.
his army to Helm's
Yeah.
Deep, but he doesn't send anyone.
Right.
I'm failing this quiz right now.
Just do your best. Just do your best. It's good. Consider it honest. Da, 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 da.
Or when
Da, 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 da.
They're like, there's Elrond and then both his sons have E's, but then like there's so many E's in Rohan too, and like I don't remember.
I've got both sides of the spectrum, Dr. Marcos.
What do you mean?
I have one professor that's you, and I send you an email or something that's like immediate. Like when I send in a grade, it's like the
Oh.
hours.
Yeah, we're quick over here. We try we aim to please.
And then the other one's the exact opposite. There's papers that I've turned in like a month ago. So
Oh, you still have it hurts?
it's like half of our grades in this class is still except when everything ends.
Yes, sir. Well, see, that's a what do you call it? A vow I took because when I was in college, I hated teachers that took forever to turn back a paper. So how am I supposed to improve or learn anything? I mean, it was like a month.
Also don't sleep at night, so.
I mean, you don't have to do it right away, but I mean, really should get them back in a week or less.
Like professors who make you do like the essay questions, and you can do like you do, like only
Yeah.
do 4 of them, like 5 sentences. So I've got one who's got like 5 essays,
Yeah.
essays.
Oh, I remember because I was also a history major, and I also swore that I would not give tests where, when the student finished the test, they were about to pass out and their arm was about to fall off because they were writing 10 pages. So I also said I'm not going to give. Just try to spread it out enough, and then try to spread it out, and then you won't need anything. Yeah, because I remember taking those tests where I'm on, and by the end, I'm literally like I've got carpal tunnel syndrome by the end of the test. Crazy stuff.
I had one professor like that in
Yeah.
college. He ended up being a jerk.
I had a teacher in high school, she would vary her testing method. And so one test would be full essay, another test would be like
Oh, wow.
more of a matching kind of thing, and another one would be like she used to be like a psychologist, and so she knew like different, like the brains work differently, so she made to test different parts of our brains, which was actually very interesting.
Why not just make a smaller test with all kinds of different.
I think she did one that was mixed, but she also just wanted to see like how. And the essay tests aren't actually that bad because she would be very nice about it. Like if you didn't know the exact answer, you could talk your way around it and just kind of say what you knew about it, and you get some points there.
That's gonna be it. Oh, I know. It's in English. Is always you can get partial points. It's not a complete. Well, even in math, sometimes they look at your work, right? You can get partial credit, right?
I do
That's what it should be.
enjoy the fact that there is an answer.
Hey, has anybody here seen the movie News of the World with Tom Hanks? I haven't even heard of it.
It's great. It's great.
You haven't seen it.
It's great.
Who's in it?
It's Tom Hanks.
Oh, I just said that, didn't I?
Yeah, Tom Hanks and a little girl.
Okay, you just said so. It is good.
Great.
It's like after the Civil War or
It's
something.
really, really good.
Maybe.
It's illegal to carry a sidearm.
Oh, that's funny. It sounds like today, huh? The
Yeah, especially if you were on the other side, you can't carry.
okay.
Shooter or no weapons.
No Johnny Rebs are allowed to have.
Only
Right?
with
See.
the long rifles.
News of the World. I've got a free Redbox thing. If I'm not completely exhausted, maybe I'll watch it before I go to bed. Has anybody seen the movie Us yet? That's the same guy. Is it good?
The scary movie?
Yeah, it's a scary movie, isn't it? Is it really horrific or not?
It's visually interesting. We were just actually talking about this on our podcast. I watching them also.
Okay.
But the thing that you have to remember with movies like Us is that there aren't really any precursors to it, like as far as
Right.
African Americans being the lead.
Well, it's the same guy that wrote Get Out, right? And that was really good.
Yeah, that was good. The cinematography is great.
Somebody said it's about doppelgangers, like your other, like you and Clint, whoever's the doppelganger of each other.
Yeah, there are actually two characters in the movie that are just like.
Oh, really? Oh, that makes it worth seeing it. Now, how horrific is it?
I mean, that part is scary.
That's scary, yeah.
No, it's scary, but it's more like psychological.
More like Get Out.
It's not gory or anything.
Okay, yeah, because I don't like the gory ones. Psychological. I don't know if you all saw Get Out, but that was pretty clever. It was good. The guy that made that, Jordan Peele, who's his sidekick? They do these funny videos.
Yeah, Key and Peele.
Yeah, oh man, my son got me watching those. Hey, Aaron. My son, I did that. Got me watching those, they're pretty funny, so I think I'll do that too. Yes. Oh, you want to know the answers? Not too hard. Okay, so let's see. Okay, who possesses the Ring of Power at the start of the trilogy is Bilbo, right? He's the first person that has it when he passes it on. Who do the hobbits encounter at the Prancing Pony? That's Strider, right? Who will turn out to be Aragorn. How many members are 9? The name of the elf is Legolas. The name of the dwarf is Gimli. When the pass of Caradhras is blocked, where does Frodo say the Fellowship should go? It's Moria. That's when they go under the mines of Moria, right? Because they can't go over, so they go under, right? The first member of the Fellowship to be separated is Gandalf, right? Falls into the cracks of doom. Well, not the cracks of doom, that was stupid. Into the mines of Moria. That would be the ring, Gollum. Who is the king of Rohan? That's Theoden, is the king of Rohan. Where is Saruman's tower Orthanc? Is located in Isengard. Remember the ring of Isengard is Orthanc. Where does Theoden decide to send his people? Is Helm's Deep. I guess you're right, that's a little mixture there. What forest creatures do Pippin and Merry come across? Those are the Ents. Hey, the Ents, you got it. Whom does Aragorn love? That's Arwen, of course. Eowyn loves him, but he loves Arwen. The steward of Gondor is Denethor. Right? And what is the name of the White City? That's Minas Tirith. And then to whom does Pippin pledge allegiance? Denethor, we just did that, right? And then, of course, who does Merry pledge allegiance to? Theoden. Okay, yeah, that's what we talked about. Oh, but you got to watch it. So. Okay, I think we said this before. Maybe we didn't. That it's a convention in epics, starting with the Odyssey, that you have a descent into the underworld. Remember, we wrote that word nequia. It's like our word necros, like necrophilia or necromancer or necropolis. It means dead. And starting with the Odyssey, and even before that, myths like the myth of Hercules and all, or Orpheus, the hero has to make a descent into the underworld and face that which he fears. And we left off last time. I was sad you weren't here because we left off the farewell speech between Aragorn and Eowyn, right? Which is really beautifully done. I know you like that part, but don't worry. When we get there, we will let you read the part about you see a woman, right? Okay, so kills him. Excited to read that part. Pretty cool. Anyway, so again, it's about facing your fear. And I think I sort of said this at the end of the last class, that he's not really in danger when he goes to the paths of the dead physically. It's not like any of the dead people can actually kill him, okay? Dead people can't. That's the whole point. They're ghosts, okay? They can't hold a sword and kill you. But what Aragorn faces is his own capacity for fear. Losing his mind and just never coming back, or just falling. And all the people that have gone there have never come back because there's that numinous fear, that tingly fear. And did anybody notice the only person that's really not afraid to go into the paths of the dead is who? Legolas, right? By the way, that's a mistake actually on Tolkien's part, because there are actually 2 other people who shouldn't be afraid. Yeah, the other 2 elves, what's her name? Arwen's 2 brothers. But he mentions them and then he couldn't say anything. And no wonder they left him out of the movie. They don't do anything. It's so weird that he doesn't develop those characters. It's really odd. But one of my favorite lines, and they brought it just perfectly into the movie, right? And that's on page 786, towards the bottom. It says, he, that is Gimli, his knees shook, and he was wroth with himself. Here is a thing unheard of. An elf will go underground, and a dwarf dare not. Oh, if you remember that in the movie. It's just great. He is afraid to go underground because he too, the dwarves will die too. They live a long time, but they will die as well. And so we have to face our fear. We have to face the other. Right? We have to go in there. Right? Finally, Anthony faced his fear by coming to class in the same room as Clinton. Yeah, that's nice. And not COVID, it's Clinton. That's more. What's more frightening, COVID or Clinton? Clinton. Okay, there we go. That's an easy one. Anyway. So down they go, right? And as they go through, there's a lot of treasure there underground, but Aragorn doesn't go after it. This is not my mission. I have to fulfill my... They're really on a timetable here. Because they've got a long way to go, much longer than it seems like in the movie. Once they get through the dead, they're like on horseback for like 3 days to get to the ships and come around and all that. And it's just interesting that he doesn't take the journey he wants to because he's a good king. Those of you that took Narnia with me, are there some people in Narnia, some kings in Narnia that have to choose not to do the exploring they want to so they can fulfill their duty? Do you remember? Hey, very good. Where does Caspian want to go? Yeah, the end of the world, right? And at first he's going to do it. And that's when Reaper Chief says, no, you can't, right? You cannot do that. You're not a private person. It would be our duty to lock you up, right? Ah, he screams, right? And then who's the other one that wants to go exploring but doesn't? It's a harder one. It's actually Caspian's son, whose name is Brilliant. You know what he wants to explore? I think you remember? Oh, that's interesting. You're thinking because Reaper Chief does see those mermaids, but that's right. That's in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. But this one is in Silver Chair, and he wants to go into Bism. Remember that deep, dark pit where you can like drink rubies and diamonds and stuff like that? And he wants to go, but he doesn't. Partly because Jill is absolutely scared to death because she's claustrophobic. And he says, "I leave half my heart in Bism, but I go." You know, I mean, that's why I wrote one of my books is called "On the Shoulders of Hobbits" because there's so many crossovers between, and it's not so much like they're imitating each other. They're just so much interested in the same things, Lewis and Tolkien, that a lot of overlaps are there in the way they look at the world. Anyway, okay. So again, I think I also said last time that the name of the place he goes to is Dun Harrow, and this is like the harrowing of hell. Jesus went into the underworld and rescued. And again, more and more, I mean, we see it throughout this book, but as we approach the end of this book, Aragorn becomes even more messianic, right? The promise of the returned king. And when the king comes back, he proclaims release to the captives. And notice that he not only takes the ship from the pirates, he releases all the people that they had enslaved. Right? Just like what's on your shirt, Elizabeth? Ellie? Yeah. When Dorothy kills the witch, what happens? Yeah. Remember their names?
The flying monkeys.
Well, the flying monkeys, but the guys. Starts with a W. Nobody knows what they're called? O-E-O. O-O-O. You know what they're called? Come on, impress me. They're called the Winkies. The Winkies. Okay? You might remember because in the play version, it's really funny because in the play version of it, somebody asked him, you know, what does that song mean that you always sing? O-E-O. And he said, it's an old Winky song that roughly translated means O-E-O. And it's funny because everybody watches in the movie. It's like, what are they saying? And so they put it into the play. She's got a shirt. She was in the musical version, Broadway version, whatever. Not actually on Broadway, but anyway. Also, is there an Indiana Jones movie where he releases all these little kids that are slaves? Yeah, Temple of Doom. If you watch Temple of Doom, he defeats the bad guy, but in doing it, he releases all the kids as well. Now, that's kind of a type that again, the Messianic king is going to bring release to the captives, right? And I keep saying that way, right? Because I mean, I guess in a sense, Jesus' ministry begins after he's baptized, but he sort of officially begins his ministry when he goes to his hometown of Nazareth, and they ask him to do what? Oh, well, that's more his mother in Cana. But when he goes back to Nazareth, he's asked to do what? He's asked to read from the scroll. Okay? And he goes, because I went like this, but that doesn't work. It's a scroll. So he opens up the scroll, and what does he read? Come on, you know, Landa. What does he read from Isaiah? When Jesus was in Nazareth. I think it's Luke 4. He's in Nazareth, and it's his turn to read from the scroll, and he reads from the scroll of Isaiah. Remember? It says, the Spirit of the Lord... Good. Release to the poor, a sight to the blind, release to the captives. And like you said, the Lord has anointed me, right? It is literally a messianic passage. And that's what we're going to see in it more and more as he gets closer and closer to, the city, more of that messianic aspect. And of course, like the Messiah, he literally dies and resurrects. He goes under, and remember we said this before, that there are the three Christ figures that all die and resurrect. For Frodo, it's when he's killed by Shelob in a cave and then comes back. And of course Gandalf is in a cave when he goes down. And I love it because even though Frodo's on the top of a mountain, he's still in a cave that's on the top of the mountain. Okay, so all three of them are caves. And that's a big thing in mythology as well, going into the cave and coming out victorious. Right? Okay. Let's move ahead. Oh, I wish we could do so many things, but we're just going to keep moving along. And only do the important things. I'm going to skip that too. What's that?
Everything in this book is.
I know it is. I know, but had we but whirled enough in time, we'll just move along. I will say to you though that one big change that you might have noticed from the movie from the book to the movie is that as they're writing, they see that the people of Gondor have lit the pyre to ask help from Rohan. And then later in this chapter, moving quickly, they bring the red arrow, which is another way of saying, come to our aid, come to our aid. And of course, in the movie, they put more strife between Rohan and Gondor, and that gives Pippin something to do, right? Because Pippin, it's a great scene. And you almost want to read it back into the book because it's so effective. Pippin has to go up there and light it on fire. Of course, he lights it on fire and says, how do I get down? And that's one of the most beautiful cinematic moments as we see the fires going up, all the way along. That's what's called the White Mountains, all the way up the mountains and coming down to Rohan. And we must fight, right? Because that is a pact. And it's important that this is happening at the same time. Because, remember we said, the reason that the dead are there is because they are the oath breakers who did not answer the call of Gondor. But now, Rohan, even though they have just fought an amazing battle, right? Even though they've already been in probably the longest battle in movie history, now they're going to wait to the next and they're going to do an even longer battle. And then, of course, he gave us an even longer battle in the Battle of Five Armies, but by then, nobody cares. But anyway, we don't really care about most of the characters. We care about some of them, but it was on. You cared about them?
I care about them in the book.
Okay, yeah. But that's the Battle of the Five
He
Armies.
didn't even develop them much in the book.
I know.
The movie was just like,
I know. They tried. They tried to give them all different beards and cool stuff like that. Anyway, so let's jump into the Siege of Gondor. And there's a really nice moment here on page 806, well, really 807. The top of page 807. Pippin is being asked by Denethor to sing something for him, right? And Pippin has this wonderful line. He says, "But we have no songs fit for great halls and evil times, Lord." It's exactly the same dialogue. "We seldom sing of anything more terrible than wind or rain, and most of my songs are about things that make us laugh, or about food and drink, of course." Right? Very simple. And then Denethor, who does say wise things sometimes, "And why should such songs be unfit for my halls, or for such hours as these? We who have lived long under the shadow may surely listen to echoes from a land untroubled by it. Then we may feel that our vigil was not fruitless, though it may have been thankless." Now, we've heard this before. He's saying the people of Gondor, right, have been protecting the people around from Mordor without thank. But what other people have been protecting someone without much thanks? Good, the Rangers, the Northern Rangers, people up north, where Aragorn was, have been protecting the Shire, and even to a certain extent Bree, and especially the Shire, and they don't get thanks, but they still do it. Okay, they're the ones that are out there. They're the Marines or whatever. They're out there protecting. So that's an ongoing theme in Tolkien, which I think is an important one. Tolkien is by no means a hawk, as we would call it, but Tolkien does want us to respect those who protect us, right? And realize that we're allowed to, have lovely ideas and be idealistic because somebody's guarding the perimeter, right? The Rangers. And of course, it's right that Texas should have people called Rangers, isn't it right? It's just cool. Right? Okay, we're going to move on. I'm going to get to the really cool stuff.
Ohio Ranger doesn't really sound like a bad.
Yeah, you're right. Texas Rangers. This is cool. Except in the sports team. Anyway, anyway,
TV show.
what's that? Yeah, the TV show.
The new one. There's a new one.
Oh, there's a new one?
Whole completely different reboot.
Oh.
The story, different everything is really good.
What's it called?
Just Walker.
What? Oh, Walker, like Walker Texas. Okay, it's different. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. All right, look at page 812. Now we'll get to some of the really key passages done well in the movie as well. Oh, page 812. Now we're going to get the people together, okay? And now this is in the room. We have, this is the second meeting, I guess we should say, of Gandalf and Pippin and Denethor, right? We already had the meeting where where Pippin so wonderfully pledged his allegiance to Denethor, and now we meet again, and sort of the passion and intensity is amped up as we meet there. And he's Faramir, desperate to get some kind of respect from his father, one of the worst fathers in all literature, right? He had to abandon Osgiliath. There was no way to hold it. Right? What was he going to do? And he didn't, he needed to leave Frodo, all that sort of stuff. And he speaks, did I do ill, father? And then, but about halfway down page 812, he says, ill? Cried Denethor. Why do you ask? The men were under your command. Or do you ask for my judgment on all your deeds? Your bearing is lowly in my presence, yet it is long now since you turned from your own way at my counsel. See, you have spoken skillfully as ever, but have I not seen your eye fixed on Mithrandir? Who's that? Gandalf, good. Seeking whether you said well or too much, he has long had your heart in his keeping. There's a jealousy there. You listen to Gandalf and not me. Maybe that's because you're a crazy old man, okay? But you listen to Gandalf and you don't listen to me. So there still is an envy there. And remember, in some ways, Denethor is more like Faramir in some ways than he is like Boromir, is what Tolkien tells us in a few places. But again, it's terrible. I mean, a terrible father is the one that never gives his son any authority and then always humiliates him for not being able to make decisions. You've seen that? I hope none of you had to deal with something like that, but I've seen that. And it's just terrible. Okay? It's like they ridicule them, but they don't allow them to rule. And so, again, it's a powerful thing. My son, your father is old, but not yet dotard. I'm not dotard. I'm not, what would the word be? Like senile. I can see and hear, as was my wont, and little what you have half said or left unsaid is now hidden from me. I know the answer to many riddles. Alas for Boromir. He's figuring out about the ring. If what I have done displeases you, my father, I wish I had known your counsel before the burden of so weighty a judgment was thrust on me. He's talking about allowing Frodo and Sam to go with the ring. Would that have availed to change your judgment? You would still have done just so, I deem. I know you well. Ever your desire is to appear lordly and generous as a king of old, gracious, gentle. Now, first of all, that is true, okay? Faramir wants to be like that, but that means bad, right? He's trying to say, basically he's accusing him of, you're only doing that to make yourself feel good and lordly and generous. You don't really care about what's going on. But of course Faramir does, okay? But Denethor is accusing him of that. He says, that may well befit one of high race if he sits in power and peace, but in desperate hour, gentleness may be repaid with death. So be it, said Faramir. Okay? In a weird way, you might say that Denethor sees Faramir as overly idealistic, like who often sees Frodo that way? Yeah, Sam does. And of course he never gets as bad as Denethor. But, again, so be it, said Faramir. So be it. But not with your death only, Lord Faramir, with the death also of your father and of all your people, whom it is your part to protect, now that Boromir is gone. Do you wish then, said Faramir, that our places had been exchanged? Yes! It's got to be the most horrendous line in all literature. Yes, I do wish it. I wish Boromir were alive and you were dead. They say this in the movie, but no, he is, he is that bad. Like I said, the movie makes him a little bit crazier, but all the dynamic between father and son is extremely accurate to the book. I mean, what a thing to say. I wish that indeed.
Is it possible that Denethor may have also seen like Faramir as a bit of a threat because he loved so much for everybody? But then
That's kind of interesting. That does happen. Sometimes, you can be a very successful teacher, and the other teachers, envy you because you're close to the students, but nobody ever admits to envy. Okay? And I remember one of the people that used to teach biology, she used to do the labs. Everybody loved her. And, a lot of the other teachers didn't like her, and they all made excuses, but I think they were just jealous. Because we have a good biology department, but they're not necessarily known for being warm and fuzzy. Let's put it that way. And she was extremely kind and warm to her students, but also worked them extremely hard. She was really good. But that happens sometimes, it's like there's a kind of jealousy element there. He says, do you wish, I said, yes, I wish that indeed. Look at this. For Boromir was loyal to me and no wizard's pupil. Again, there is that envy. He feels like literally Gandalf has stolen his son away from him. He, Boromir, would have remembered his father's need and would not have squandered what fortune gave. He would have brought me a mighty gift. He means the ring. I would ask you, my father, to remember why it was that I, not he, was an Ithilien. On one occasion, at least, your counsel has prevailed not long ago. It was the lord of the city that gave the errand to him. Now, this is really interesting, because earlier in the book, it sounds like Boromir was the one who put himself forward to go. But then here, and this is the one that the movie follows, here it says that no, it was Denethor that wanted Boromir to go. Like I said earlier, so the movie kind of makes it a little more consistent. And we already know that the dream came to Faramir several times, but it did come once, but only once to Boromir, but several times to Faramir. Seek the sword that was broken, all that, in Imladris it dwells. It's cool stuff. Cool stuff. Your parents ever do that, like Christmas time? Like they would hide your gift somewhere else, and you would have to follow the riddles to find it? I did that a few times, come up with riddles. Like they would open it up, and it was a riddle that would lead them somewhere. And then they would find it, but there would be another riddle there, and it would take them around. Have you ever done that?
it's actually a good idea to buy time to actually make breakfast.
Make breakfast? What's that?
Good idea to buy time to make breakfast.
Oh, I didn't think about that way. Get them going. That's pretty cool. I had a friend who proposed using riddles, and the last riddle was in the freezer. And when the girl opened up the freezer, there was the ring staring at her, which was pretty cool. So I thought that was pretty neat. I think she said yes. Anyway, after all that, right?
It's like he stuck my ring in the freezer.
And in the freezer, there we go. Oh man. Ice Queen. Uh-oh, there we go. Ice Queen. All right. Okay, so he says, what was it? Stir not the bitterness in the cup that I mixed for myself. All right, now Denethor realized, maybe I was stupid to send Boromir. But he did. He was the one that sent him. Have I not tasted it now many nights upon my tongue, foreboding that worse yet lay in the dregs? As now indeed I find, would it were not so, would that this thing had come to me. Of course he means the ring. And then finally, Gandalf, comfort yourself. In no case would Boromir have brought it to you. He is dead, and he died well. May he sleep in peace. Yet you deceive yourself. He would have stretched out his hand to this thing and taken it, and he would have fallen. Fallen just like what other person in the line of kings? Isildur, right? Just as Isildur fell, he would have fallen as well, right? He says he would have kept it for his own, and when he returned, you would not have known your son. He's right, and that's what probably would have happened to Faramir if he took it. The face of Denethor said hard and cold, "You found Boromir less apt to your hand, did you not?" See? You couldn't manipulate Boromir like you manipulated Faramir. Okay, there's real great tension underneath going on back and forth between these two. But I, who was his father, say that he would have brought it to me. I believe it. He would have brought it to me. He would have not given in. He would not have been tempted and corrupted, right? You are wise, maybe, Mithrandir, yet with all your subtleties you have not all wisdom. Counsels may be found that are neither the webs of wizards nor the haste of fools. I have in this matter more lore and wisdom than you deem. Now, he keeps dropping hints like that again and again. And of course, what are they all references to? Do you understand? It's because he has a palantir. And that's sort of the movie, like, we have a riddle with no answer. Why does Denethor know all these things? Right? And just in case we didn't get a chance to read it, understand that when he looked into the palantir, Sauron cannot show him untrue things. When he looks in the palantir, he sees real things, but what does Sauron do? See? He manipulates, guides what he sees, right? So the implication is he sees the black ships of the pirates coming up the ocean, or up the river there, Anduin, to come. But he doesn't realize that the good guys are in the ships, right? Or, it's hard to say for sure, but at some point I get the sense that he might have seen an image of a dead Frodo. I didn't quite say that, but all this despair, because he says, you're a fool, it's gone, it didn't work. Maybe he saw the pale, dead face of Frodo, which of course Sam also saw in the Mirror of Galadriel, if you remember, right? So maybe, but he sees things that are true, but they're used by the enemy to make him despair. Again, remember, again and again, when we talked about this before the midterm, I said that there's this strange thing in The Lord of the Rings where Tolkien keeps saying, we don't know the future, and therefore we have hope. Which again, sounds like a contradiction. But it is, seeing is perilous. Right? Seeing is perilous. Again, God is very, very straight about this in the Old Testament. Don't go to fortune tellers, okay? It is an evil thing to try to see the future in a wrongful way. And yet everybody does. Every single culture has some weird, the most obvious is reading palms, but others have reading tea leaves and reading coffee grinds and reading the sticks that you throw down. And, of course, like we said, the old days, it was the flight of birds or the shape of livers that you sacrifice. I mean, all these different ways of seeing the future. Remember, in New Jersey, you don't pump your own gas. It's still full serve. And I grew up pumping gas. I know nothing about cars, but I grew up pumping gas. And I remember one crazy guy, you know how it works? Well, it's really kind of funny, because in the old days, when you pumped the gas, you wanted to round it off, right? Now, everybody puts a credit card, so what's the difference, right? But you would always round it off. But when it stopped, he said, don't touch it. And he would come out, and whatever the numbers were, he would write them down, and that's what he would bet on Lotto, this guy. I don't know if he ever won, but that was his system. Okay, everybody's got their system. It's so funny. Yep, that's it. That's going to be the winning number. I don't know if he ever won, but anyway. He said, what then is your wisdom? And again, he doesn't say. And Gandalf is often very slow at getting things. You notice that? Yeah. He's really slow. Like, he doesn't realize it's the Palantir before. He doesn't, anyway.
I love how in the book he admits when he's slow. In the movie, he doesn't really do that very
That's
well.
true. I guess you're right. Yeah, he does realize I made a mistake. I think he even realizes he was maybe foolish in not explaining to Pippin about the Palantir. But I wasn't sure myself. Well, I might have just guessed. Crazy, right? Again, 17 years. 17 years between the 11th birthday and the beginning. Come on, Gandalf, get on the move. Right? Anyway, he says, enough to perceive that there are two follies to avoid. That's what Gandalf says. To use this thing, the ring is perilous. At this hour, to send it in the hands of a witless... Denethor says this. To send it in the hands of a witless halfling into the land of the enemy himself, as you have done, and this son of mine, that is madness. Right? No, we should have kept it here. I would have kept it hidden, and I wouldn't touch it, except in great need. Right? Yeah, except in great need. Okay, well, we would have pulled that out pretty quickly. Right? If you've watched the movie of Prince Caspian, they needed to rearrange it so it didn't have the flashback. So in the beginning, Caspian's given this horn. It's like, do not use this except in great need. Like 2 seconds later, but they needed to get everything going in the movie. It was pretty funny. But again, all of this, the wrath and stuff like that. Then things start moving along. I'll just explain it in case I forget. Another change they make to the movie that's kind of interesting. Okay, in the movie, all right. After the good guys win the Battle of Pelennor Fields, right? Then there's one more battle. That's the Battle of the Black Gate. They go to the Black Gate in order to empty Mordor so they can get there. In the movie, it works well in the movie. In the movie, the way that Aragorn gets Sauron to attack the gate is he looks in the palanquin and says, remember this? He holds up the sword. Remember this? Okay, it's like, remember Sting? Remember this? And in the book, he does that same thing, but he does it earlier to get him to come to the Battle of Pelennor Fields. So it's the same thing, but it changes just a little bit there. And if you go back and read it carefully, it's really funny. Aragorn is usually pretty laid back, but every time they talk about the Palantir, he gets touchy. Like when Gandalf, don't I have the right? Yes, I do. And then somebody else could, don't I have the right to do it? It's just kind of funny. He's always, but I mean, it is one of the heirlooms of his kingship, whatever. But he always seems to be touchy about the Palantir and about whether or not he can handle it. Do I have the strength and the wisdom to do it? As Saruman did not, and also as Denethor did not. But Aragorn does it, but he doesn't spend too long. But again, he's like, look at this. Come and get me. Okay. Oh man, there's so much to do. Okay, let's see. I'm going to keep moving. We do get a glimpse of him, by the way. Denethor goes up to the tower, and we see it glowing and all that sort of stuff. And again, it's kind of going back now. It's like, there actually are quite a lot of clues that he's got a Palantir, and that's what's going on. It's pretty well written. By the way, I don't want to read it. It's too horrific. Did anybody notice what the orcs and the bad guys do to try to break down the resistance of the people in Minas Tirith? Okay, because in the beginning, of course, they're sieging the city. They don't. I guess they don't have enough dynamite to blow that one up as well, right? But did anybody notice what they did to sort of break down their will and make them get all scary? What did they do?
They sent over the head.
Yeah, they killed their people, cut off their heads, and catapulted them in there. Ugh. Okay. That's right. The movie does show that. That's right. I think that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And by the way, there was a time during one of the wars, back when that the Turks would, the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Turks, they would catapult plague-infested bodies into. Yeah, you heard about that? It's like, ooh, that's probably where I told them about the idea. So things like that did happen. But that's a way to break down the resistance. Again, it's the greatest enemy of a siege for you, if you're being sieged, of course, is hunger and thirst. That's why you've got to have it. But despair and anxiety and all of those things are very bad, and that's what they're trying to increase. It's a kind of psychological warfare. Is it? Well, yeah, the plague is pretty bad too. If you can actually get that in there, it's like, ooh, man. So. The mask. Okay. Then basically Denethor goes crazy because he's looked in the Palantir. He's given up. The West is going to fail. It's the end of the age of men. Let's all burn ourselves, folks. Okay. And he said, yay! And there was much rejoicing. On page 825, that's the second paragraph. He says. That's right. He says, why do the fools fly? Better to burn sooner than late, for burn we must. Go back to your bonfire, and I will go now to my pyre. No tomb for Denethor and Faramir, no tomb. No long, slow steep of death and balm. We will burn like heathen kings, and before ever a ship sailed hither from the west. The west has failed, go back and burn. In other words, we'll be like the wild men that lived in Middle-earth before the Númenóreans came and helped civilize us and things. Let's just go back and let's go be Anglo-Saxons or something like that or whatever, or even farther back. By the way, on that same page 825, just before the space break, he releases Pippin. Okay, it's really kind of cool because, as we said a moment ago, Pippin pledges himself to Denethor, and Merry pledges himself to Theoden, and 3 days later, both of them are released by the old man who's sort of given up. It's just kind of funny, but it fits perfectly. And so he releases him, and then he says to him, "Do as you will, Master Halfling, but my life is broken." I mention that to you because later, when Theoden, is crushed by his own horse, when he's scared and all this stuff, he says almost the exact same words. My body is broken. Right? So again, this ongoing parallel between Denethor and Theoden, but what, of course, is the big difference between Denethor and Theoden? Yeah, very good. Denethor ends with complete despair and suicide, whereas Theoden dies a hero And what does he say now? Now I will not be ashamed to what? Stand before basically when I go to Valhalla and drink in the great mead hall of the sky, I will no longer be ashamed before them. Right? So again, the difference is very profound, as it's meant to be between them. And he just carries it nicely back and forth. By the way, I won't point it out, but I don't know if you notice that the closer we get to the end, remember I said how he keeps doing this. We talk about this and we talk about this separately. But I don't know if you notice, the more we get to the end of this book, there's more and more meanwhiles mixed in. Like, while Frodo was doing this, it's like he's coming closer and closer. And the people that invented editing for films, in our country, what was it called? Birth of the Nation, was with D.W. Griffith, that when you go back and forth, they call it parallel cutting, you go back and forth. What you want to do is, in the beginning of the sequence, you might be 3 minutes here, 3 minutes there, but then you keep making it faster, 2 minutes, 1 minute, then they're like, 10 seconds back and forth. So you're moving this mounting energy and tension. And that really happens. The parts start to collide as we get closer. And Tolkien keeps reminding us of what's happening over here and what's happening over there. Remember I told you in the appendix at the back, there's a timetable that tells you what's happening each day. That's pretty cool. If you want to be a real nerd. So, okay, then page 828. In case you were wondering, if you've ever watched the movie, what all those ugly orcs are saying when they pull out the battering ram that looks like a wolf and it's fiery, they keep saying, Grond, Grond, Grond. I'm sorry, anytime I watch any kind of political rally and everybody starts chanting, I can never understand what they're saying. Can you? I can never understand what they're saying. They're all chanting something together, which is supposed to be, but I can never understand what they're saying. Anyway, but what's it? Grog, but that's what they're saying. Grond is like, I think I said this before. One of the cool differences in Norse mythology is in Greek and Roman mythology, there's lots of cool names for heroes, but we almost never have a name for things. In Greek, they don't, nobody names their sword or their shield or that kind of thing. They don't even, they usually don't even name their horse, right? But in Norse mythology, things have names, right? The most famous being Excalibur. But all their swords have names, all of this. So even the battering ram has a name, like it's a thing. It's kind of cool. And they keep battering in there. And then on the very top of page 829, as they're crashing through, it says, thrice he cried, thrice the great ram boomed, and suddenly upon the last stroke, the gate of Gondor broke. As if stricken by some blasting spell, it burst asunder. There was a flash of searing lightning, and the doors tumbled in riven fragments to the ground, suggesting another kind of evil technology. Right? Then, in rode the Lord of the Nazgul, right? The Witch King of Angmar from the north, right? The Lord of the Nazgul. A great black shape against the fires beyond he loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, under the archway that no enemy ever yet had passed, and all fled before his face. If you like this kind of diction, you get more of it by reading Mort d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory. That's one of the early pieces of English prose that is English. That's not like old English. And it's one of the first books to be printed. Obviously, the Bible's the first. But Mort, The Death of Arthur by Mallory has a lot of that language that Lewis and Tolkien's harkening back to. He comes in. See, no one has ever breached Minas Tirith, right? The bad guys took, Minas Morgul a long time ago, but nobody has ever broken through here. Just like nobody had ever broken before Helm's Deep, right? All save one. Everybody flees except somebody. There, waiting, silent and still in the space before the gate, sat Gandalf upon Shadowfax. Shadowfax, who alone among the three horses of the earth endured the terror, unmoving, steadfast as a graven image in Raftinin. Wonderful. Like a statue. You cannot enter here, said Gandalf, and the huge shadow halted. Go back to the abyss prepared for you. And he says something similar to the Balrog. And of course, Jesus also, when is Jesus about to send the demons into the abyss? And what do the demons say? Right? Yeah, don't send this into this, send this into the pigs. And they go into the pigs, all pigs go running down, right? Go back to the abyss prepared for you. Go back, fall into the nothingness that awaits you and your master. Go. I want you to watch for this, because when the bad guys die, like Saruman, at the end of the book, and the Witch King, they often talk about they're like all sorts of smoke, and then the smoke blows. It's like they want to go to the west, right? They want to go back to Val, and then the smoke just dissipates and it's gone. And he mentions that a couple of times with the evil characters. He says, the Black Rider flung back his hood, and behold, he had a kingly crown, and yet upon no head visible was it set. The red fire shone between it and the mantled shoulders vast and dark. From a mouth unseen there came a deadly laughter. Old fool, this is my hour. Do you not know death when you see it? You ever hear that voice in your studio? Chris? Here, someone from the back room. Die.
It's only coming from my belly.
From your belly. Feed me, Seymour. She's Seymour right there. Feed me, Seymour. Yeah, in a way it does, yeah. Yeah, in Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman, yeah. Yep. That's just empty head. And where I think he got this, though, is if you've ever read Paradise Lost, right? Satan gives birth to sin, which pops out of his head like Athena, and then sin gives birth to death, and death is like this shadowy figure with crowns around it, okay? Terrifying stuff. Isn't that disturbing? Though that whole twisted thing is very disturbing. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and look at what happens. Just at the worst point, right? He says, die now and curse in vain. And with that, he, the Witch King, lifted high his sword, and flames ran down the blade. He's facing Nicolas Cage as the Ghost Rider. And it says, Gandalf did not move, and in that very moment, away behind in some courtyard of the city, a cock crowed. Shrill and clear he crowed, recking nothing of wizardry or war, welcoming only the morning that in the sky, far above the shadows of death, was coming with the dawn. And as if in answer, there came from far away another note. Horns, horns, horns! In dark Mindoluine sides they dimly echoed. Great horns of the north wildly blowing. Rohan has come at last. The nick of time, the cavalry shows up. I told you that Tolkien said himself he cried 2 times when he reread the book. One was the one we saw before when Gollum has that redemptive moment, right? And then he gets pushed away. This was the other one. The sound of the horns of Rohan at cockcrow. Always unexpected help. Tolkien was really into that. Unexpected help coming out of nowhere. Right? Basically, when Frodo runs into Faramir, that's unexpected help that he gets. And these things happen. And the first time Rohan appeared to save Gondor, it was unexpected help, and that's why the pact was made with Eorl the Younger. So this is a big thing, showing up at the last minute. Anyway, cool stuff. Then we go back and we learn about the Ride of the Rohirrim. Oh, this is too much. Oh, by the way, I just saw something on online that said the new Lord of the Rings that Amazon's going to do is going to cost like $465 million. Something like about $500 million they're going to spend. Did you see that? Yeah. I mean, I think they already spent hundreds of millions for the rights, I think. What's that? Just for one season, yeah. Unbelievable. That's what it said. Was it 465, something like that? I just saw it earlier today. Wow. So we'll see what happens.
Like hour-and-a-half long episodes? Or?
I don't know, man. They're going to spend money.
20 episodes?
We're ready for this.
How many episodes were in Game of Thrones per season?
Well, usually there were about 10, weren't they?
Yeah, and then the last 2 seasons are like 6 and 5.
Yeah, and they made them longer, which didn't do any good because they just padded them out. They weren't really more full than the other ones.
Long night.
The long night. Oh, yeah. What's that? Was it 8? 8? Does that sound right?
Yeah, there are 8 seasons.
8 seasons, right, yeah. 8 seasons. That's pretty amazing.
What?
Have not.
Wow.
The first book, and I tried to read it, and I got maybe 100 pages in before I was
Lord of the Rings with gratuitous sex and violence, right there. That's all you need to know. Right there. But Sean Bean is in it, the guy who plays Boromir, and of course he dies, because he always dies.
They kill off all the good
I know they do. Yeah, it's a show that doesn't. It's not afraid of killing off. Wow. Okay. I just love that when they come to fight. Look at the end of that chapter. It's page 838. We just have them come. We don't have time to go into all of it. It is cool though, because they meet these sort of like primitive people that are living in the woods and stuff like that. And they're like, look, we'll show you the way through, but you need to give this land to us. And he's like, do you know this? And basically he says, look, we may be primitive, but we're not stupid, okay? We know what's going on. It's really wonderful. We're not stupid. And he helps them. There's lots of little things like that. You always wish he'd developed it a little bit more. But anyway, at the very end of page 830, at the end of the chapter, last page says, and then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city. That's Beowulf, right? That's what he's getting from Beowulf and that whole tradition, right? It's a little bit fatalistic, but there's a joy in battle. And C.S. Lewis once said, look, he said, I can understand an honest pacifist. I don't agree with it, but I can understand an honest pacifism. But what I don't get is people who said, all right, we must fight, and so let's do it with a bitter, dejected face all the time. It's like, if we want to fight, let there be joy in battle. Lewis even said there's something beautiful about, the Crusader knight or something like that, the knight that goes out and risks everything. There is a beauty to that. So if we're going to fight, let's at least find some joy. Right? Then at the beginning of the next chapter, we find out that the darkness is breaking too soon. Right? That things are not quite going the way that they want them. Okay, and then on the next page is where the Lord of the Nazgul lands, and the terror of the winged beast he rides on causes the horse of Theoden to rear, and then the horse basically crushes Theoden is what happens, right? But look at the description of this bird thing. It's not really a dragon. It's more of a twisted vulture. So it's not really anything identifiable, right? But it's on page 884. I'm sorry, 840. Page 840. And towards the top of the page, he says, to me, cried Theoden, up, Berlingnos, fear no darkness. Then it says, the great shadow descended like a falling cloud, and behold, it was a winged creature, if bird, then greater than all other birds. And it was naked, and neither quill nor feather did it bear, and its vast pinions were as webs of hide between horned fingers, and it stank. Tolkien always adds in, those descriptions. You remember Clinton? We talked about that with Lewis too. Always appealing to all the different senses, right? And it stank. A creature of an older world, maybe it was, whose kind, lingering in forgotten mountains cold beneath the moon, outstayed their day, and in his hideous eyrie bred this last untimely brood, apt to evil. And the Dark Lord, Sauron now, took it and nursed it with fell meats, until it grew beyond the measure of all other things that fly, and he gave it to his servant, the Lord of the Nazgul, to be his steed. Down it came, and then, folding its fingered webs, it gave a croaking cry, and settled upon the body of Snowmane, digging in its claws, stooping its long, naked neck. Ooh. Do you remember, we talked before about a Dark Lord feeding something on fell meats? Remember that giant dog called Karkaroth? That's the one that bites off the hand of Beren. It's like he feeds him on flesh, right? And he gets larger and larger and more terrifying. And then they come down, but again, he is crushed, but somebody shows up. And again, in the movie, they don't even try to fool you into thinking Eowyn is a man, because it's just not going to work, right? But here, the first time you read it, you do not know that Durnhelm is her, right? And she comes up, very top, page 841. Then out of blackness in his mind, he says still his, so we don't know yet. He thought that he heard Durnhelm speaking. I'm sorry. Then yet now the voice seemed strange, recalling some other voice that he had known. Come on, read it for us.
Be gone, child of Wimore Lake, Lord of Crayon. Leave the dead in peace.
A cold voice answered, "Come not between the Nazgul and his prey, or he will not slay thee in thy turn. He will bear thee away to the houses of lamentation beyond all darkness, where thy flesh shall be devoured and thy shriveled mind be left naked to the lidless eye." A sword rang as it was drawn.
Do what you will, but I will hinder it if I may.
"Hinder me, thou fool! No living man may hinder me." Then Mary heard all sounds in the hour of the strangest. It seemed that Durnhelm laughed, and the clear voice was like the ring of steel.
But no living man am I. You look upon a woman. Eowyn I am, Eowyn's daughter. You stand between me and my lord and kin. Be gone if you be not deathless. For living or dark, undead, I will smite you if you touch me.
Yeah. I think it's even better in the movie. She just says, "I am no woman." That really works well. And again, and even though you know who it is, still when she pulls off and the hair comes out, it's really, really cool. Right? Whew. Clinton, I want you to find a way to say, "Come not between the Nazgul and his prey" to someone, okay? Try that. I mean, again, we have to find ways to use these lines.
In other words, don't come between me and my coffee.
Oh, there we go. That's right. Come not between the Nazgul and his prey. I mean, just, and again, the terror, what he's saying to Eowyn, you will just be killed. You'll be shriveled. I will take you to be destroyed. Have your mind shriveled by this horror and terror, right? And she comes in. And actually, it's kind of interesting. No man can kill me. But actually, he's really killed by two people. One is a woman. The other is a hobbit, okay? Because the hobbit helps by stabbing him in the back of his leg there. And that distracts him just long enough for the death kill, right? And look at this phrase. We've seen it before. It's actually in The Hobbit. On page 841, about 2/3 of the way down. Eowyn it was, and Durnhelm also, for into Merry's mind flashed the memory of the face that he saw at the riding from Dunharrow, the face of one that goes seeking death, having no hope. That's that fatalism of the Rohirrim. Pity filled his heart, and great wonder, and suddenly the slow kindled courage of his race awoke. It says that before when Bilbo's being attacked. I think it says it also in the barrows, the evil barrows when Frodo's about to be frozen, right? And I think it says something like that when he's being attacked by the spiders in The Hobbit. Right? That slow kindled courage comes out, and the hobbits really are strong, right? It's amazing stuff. And again, she shoves it, right into that empty, we call it the helmet, right? And in the movie, he's like, it's really cool the way they do it. It's just crushed in. Yeah, really kind of cool the way they did that. But one of the sad things that is not in the book, but's in the movie, is Theoden dies, and what? Doesn't know Eowyn is there. That Eowyn saved him. I don't know why they did that. So the movie, and of course the movie is so moving because in the movie they add that line when he's first, released or exorcised, if you will, by Gandalf. He turns to Eowyn and he says, "I know your face." Of course, that line. Then again, when he's dying, she comes to him, "I know your face," and it's just wonderful, And you almost expect her to say, "And I was going to save you, Uncle." You already have. You recognize that? "Oh, come on. I was going to save you, Father." You already have. That's the end of Star Wars. Star Wars 6. Remember? When he kills the evil emperor, and Anakin is dying, and he takes off the mask, and Luke says, "I was going to save you, Father." You already have. Remember that? Yeah, maybe?
It's just not ingrained in my brain.
That's not ingrained in your brain like the other stuff. But, and notice here, as he's dying, he does actually see Merry, at least, and it's at the bottom of the page, 842. "Farewell, Master Holbeitla. My body is broken." Again, that same kind of word, but maybe his body's broken, but his spirit is not broken. "I go to my fathers, and even in their mighty company I shall not now be ashamed. I felled the black serpent, a grim morn and a glad day, and a golden sunset." And he dies well, and because these are the Rohirrim, they even put a little epitaph for his horse, who died well. Isn't that awesome? That's just amazing, right? And just again, on page 844, just before that, towards the bottom, before that last paragraph, again, the kind of thing that you would see in Norse mythology, but you don't get this kind of a thing in Greek mythology. This wonderful focus on an object. It says, Okay, the sword that Mary stabbed him with, that sword came from the Barrow Downs, right? Which, of course, they have to change that in the movie because they don't go to the Barrow Downs in the movie. But so passed the sword of the Barrow Downs, work of Westerness. That's another name for Numenor. But glad would he have been to know its fate, who wrought it slowly long ago in the North Kingdom when the Dunedain were young, and chief among their foes was the dread realm of Angmar and its sorcerer king. No other blade, not though mightier hands had wielded, would have dealt that foe a wound so bitter, cleaving the undead flesh, breaking the spell that knit his unseen sinews to his will. Magic swords, right? Poetic justice coming full circle. I mean, again, that's the kind of stuff that, and of course, you get a little bit of that in Lewis, because Lewis was also very, very heavily influenced by Norse mythology, but not quite as much as Tolkien was. Wow. Okay. Oh, there's so much to do. Okay. Then on page 847, you like the thing for the horse? Which one do you like? Oh, it actually is sad. My sister. Oh, I know. Those are beautiful scenes too. And again, the extended version at least adds a little bit more of it. More about Faramir and Eowyn. Not much. Yeah, there's a little more. It's about Faramir and Eowyn. It's not this part at the end. But yeah, they're just so beautiful. And we also lose the talkative old lady. You notice that? He keeps talking and talking. You can start by stopping your talking and going to find it. You know, it's really funny. He's kind of tough on her and also the magician guys. He's kind of tough on them. It's pretty funny. But anyway, on page 847, when the ships show up, it's wonderful because then they unfurl the banner that Arwen had made for them, right? And it's, the banner of the king, basically. And it unfurls, and everybody flees and runs away, and it's like, ah! And they kill them all. It's wonderful stuff. Oh, the pyre of Denethor. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't notice, the movie's pretty good at explaining this. Theoden might have lived if what didn't happen. If you kind of catch on this. Gandalf has to do something which takes him away from the battlefield, and one of the consequences really is the death of Theoden. What does he have to do, Gandalf? He has to go and save Faramir, who's about to be set on fire. And it's there in the movie, too. You have to kind of imply it. But he basically says to Pippin, I'll come, but there will be consequences, basically what he says. And that's the consequence. If he didn't have to run over and save Faramir from the crazy Denethor, he might have been able to, stop the Theoden from dying. So there are, and again, it's like the craziness of Denethor ends up leading partly to the death of Theoden. So that Gandalf is not there. So it's all connected, in other words. There's also a great moment. I want you to remember this when we get to the end of the book next week, if we make it. That even with Gandalf coming to the rescue of Faramir, Faramir still would have died if it wasn't for who? I don't know if you picked this up. This is not in the movie. But, okay, remember? Well, it's not exactly Aragorn, but, Aragorn. Okay. Okay, good. It's Baragon. Okay, remember that character we said, Baragon, who is kind of a assistant or whatever. I mean, he's the one who's got that little boy Burgle. Well, Baragon has to make an extremely difficult choice, especially for someone like Tolkien to say, right? He always follows his lord, but his lord is mad, and so Baragon, has to actually kill some of the other Gondorians to save his lord, right? And I want you to remember that because when we get to the end of the next class, there's an amazing moment when Aragorn shows his unbelievable sense of justice, right? Trying to figure... a good example of this, any of you ever seen the movie Gandhi? I don't know if this actually happened in real life, but there's a scene in Gandhi where people are killing each other and whatnot, and, because there's a fight with the Hindus and Muslims killing each other, and Gandhi's trying to stop it, and somebody comes to him who's Hindu, and he's like, I just killed this family, I just killed this Muslim family in cold blood. And Gandhi says to him, all right, he says, you have to take in his son, who's now an orphan, and you need to raise him as a Muslim instead of as a Hindu. I don't know if you remember that. And the guy's like, whoa, right? When we get to that, there's this kind of interesting idea of justice that Aragorn is going to mete out to Baragon. And again, it's not in the movie because we don't have the scene. But again, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, right? I mean, basically, when do you go against your commander and face court-martial if you really think your commander-in-chief is going insane, right? I mean, of course, in America, if you're a soldier, you don't take a pledge to the commander-in-chief. Who do you take a pledge to? The Constitution. I should say what? Take a pledge to the Constitution. So there's a big difference. In England, everybody takes a pledge to the Queen. All those people in political authority and stuff pledge to a person. And there's something I like about that, but there's also something to be said from the American way, right? They're pledging to whatever, the Constitution, an idea. Not even pledging to the president as a commander-in-chief. The highest thing is the Constitution. Because, say it again? That's true. That is true. It's true. And did you ever hear the phrase, the famous Latin? Let's see if I remember what it is. 1 second. Oh man. Yeah. You ever seen this? Rex Lex, Lex Rex. Can you guess what Rex means? Good. The first one, Rex Lex, means the king is the law. Lex Rex means the law is the king. And of course, what do we believe in our country? We believe the second, the law is the king. Right? At least we try to. But this is difficult. This is even more difficult in the situation of a British situation where you swear allegiance to a lord, where you pay fealty to the Lord. So Berrigan does something very, 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 very brave and very, very difficult to do that. Anyway, again, he's in madness. On page 852, let me see. Page 852, about a third of the way down the page, Gandalf says, when Gandalf comes in and he sees him, setting a fire, he says, "What is this, my lord?" said the wizard. "The houses of the dead are no places for the living. And why do men fight here on the hallows when there is war enough before the gate, or as our enemy come even to Rath Dinnan?" Right? How can we win a war when we're fighting each other? Right? And the person that's not dead is Fairman, they're fighting each other. "Since when has the Lord of Gondor been answerable to thee? Or may I not command my own servants?" These guys are always jockeying back and forth. "You may, but others may contest your will when it is turned to madness and evil. Where is your son Faramir? He lies within, burning, already burning. They have set a fire in his flesh, but soon all shall be burned. The west has failed, it shall all go up in a great fire, and all shall be ended. Ash, ash, and smoke blown away on the wind." Here is that twilight of the gods, that Götterdämmerung we talked about, Ragnarok. Everything is dying, jump into the fire, giving into despair. Again, that's the lowest, is the despair. Higher on the scale is the fatalism of Theoden and the Rohirrim, but a little bit higher up is actually Aragorn and Gandalf, the way that Tolkien presents it. So the Rohirrim are the very best of paganism, if you will, sort of like the Greeks and Romans. But there is a little bit higher that you can go up with the kind of courage that a Gandalf or an Aragorn has. He's always playing them against each other. And then, I love it, a little bit farther down, he's starting to burn, and it says, middle of the paragraph, "Then Gandalf revealed the strength that lay hid in him, even as the light of his power was hidden under his gray mantle. He leaped up onto the faggots." Okay, we don't use that word that way, and that means sticks. Burning sticks, right? Sticks. And raising the sick man lightly, he sprang down again and bore him towards the door. Does anybody remember who does this in the movie? Pippin does it. And of course, they have to, pretend like he can really lift that huge guy and take him out of there. They just kind of play with the camera, right? But that's not exactly such an easy thing to do. But that was cool. They always want to give Pippin something to do. But here, Gandalf leaps in there and picks him up. Like that really weird scene in the Hobbit when was it Kate Blanchett picks up Gandalf and carries him off over there. That is the weirdest scene. Oh man, unbelievable. Man, these British people can really act. Have you ever seen, like, Kate Blanchett did this movie where she's like a medium and she's got a perfect Southern accent? They can do anything. I don't remember what it was called, but it was pretty good. She's helping the police because she has visions. What's that? That was the name of the movie, Bandits?
Yeah, she was in the, it's about the bank robbers. She was with Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh, okay.
Guy from Bruce Willis.
That was Bruce Willis. That's right. It was. I can remember that number. Yeah.
Amazing.
She can do anything. I mean, the accents and different things like that. And even some of those actors that we think are British are actually like Australian. They have a totally different accent. So, oh my gosh. Well, actually, Kate Blanchett is Australian. Yeah. And the lovely Naomi Watts, too. She could do any accent. You believe her. What's that? Oh, he was the best of all. He was the best of all. Alec Guinness. Sir Alec Guinness.
Sir, buddy. Sir on it.
Put a sir on there. I love it. I love how Americans who are so for freedom and everybody's the same always love to use that sir. Like if you go on IMDb, they're always very careful to say Sir Laurence Olivier, Sir Anthony Hopkins. It's really funny. Anyway, okay. Where was I? What's it? Denethor sort of wakes up, right? And he says on top of the next page, he will not wake again. Battle is vain. Why should we wish to live longer? Why should we not go to death side by side? Authority is not given you, steward of Gondor, to order the hour of your death, and only the heathen kings under the domination of the Dark Power did thus, slaying themselves in pride and despair, murdering their kin to ease their own death. This is, again, these are the heathens. The sin of suicide is a sin of pride and despair. That's when it's really bad, when it comes down there. And look, though, at the very end, as so often, he gives them a chance. Just like he gave Saruman 1,000 chances when he's on the Tower of Orthanc. Come, said Gandalf, we are needed. There is much that you can yet do. Right? So we're giving you one more chance. Even now you have a chance. Then suddenly, Denethor laughed, sort of like the mad laugh of Saruman. He stood up tall and proud again, and stepping swiftly back to the table, he lifted from it the pillow on which his head had lain. Then coming to the doorway, he drew aside the covering, and lo, he had between his hands a palantir. And Gandalf said, man, I screwed up again. Pride and despair? Didst thou think that the eyes of the White Tower were blind? Nay, I have seen more than thou knowest, grey fool, for thy hope is but ignorance. Go then, and labor in healing. Go forth and fight, vanity. For a little space you may triumph on the field for a day, but against the powers that now rises there is no victory. To this city only the first finger of its hand has yet been stretched. All the east is moving, and even now the wind of thy hope cheats thee and wafts up Anduin, a fleet with black sails. He doesn't know that Aragorn is in there. The west has failed. It is time for all to depart who would not be slaves. Such counsels will make the enemy's victory certain indeed. By the way, do you know what a famous Greek myth has black sails in it? If anybody got this, I would be very impressed. It led to the death of a king. Black sail. Do you know? Oh, no. Greek mythology. Do you anybody know? Black sails led to the death of a king. His son went on what seemed to be a suicide mission, and the father told him, if you come back victorious, put the white sails up instead of the black sails. You know? Do you know? Well, the suicide mission he went on was to kill something called a Minotaur. You know who killed the Minotaur? Oh, that's close, but that's Perseus. That's close. It's Theseus. And Theseus, and what happened is that the son of King Minos of Crete had died. It wasn't really the fault of Athens; it was an accident. But he exacted a horrible price that every 7 years they would have to send 7 maidens and 7 youths to be sacrificed to the Minotaur in the labyrinth. And I think it was the 3rd time Theseus went with them, and he successfully killed the Minotaur. Right? And the ship that took the people had black sails, and he told them change them to white sails if you come back. But he got drunk or whatever; he forgot to change the sails. The father saw the black sails, thought his son was dead, and jumped to his death. Okay, and the name of his father. What's that? Well, Daedalus is part of that story, but he's on the Crete side. His father's name is Aegeus. and he jumped and drowned in a body of water that we now call the Aegean, okay? That part of the Mediterranean between Greece and Turkey is called the Aegean because Aegeus jumped in and just like when Icarus died, it became called the Icarian Sea. It's a different part of the Mediterranean. But anyway, we got close. I knew it was in the back of your mind. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. He might have had that in mind, the idea of the black sails. Especially where the Minotaur came from. Oh yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, it's good stuff. Whom he abandons, and she tries to kill herself, but then Dionysus takes her in. It's pretty amazing. Anyway, he says, "Hope on then left Denethor. Do I not know thee, Mithrandir? Thy hope is to rule in my stead, to stand behind every throne, north, south, or west." And look, everybody accuses Gandalf, wanting to be in control of everything. The poor guy. I have read thy mind and its policies. Do I not know that you commanded this halfling here to keep silence, that you brought him hither to be a spy within my very chamber? And yet in our speech together I have learned the names and purposes of all thy companions. So, with the left hand thou wouldst use me for a little while as a shield against Mordor, and with the right bring up this ranger of the north to supplant me. Who would that be? That would be Aragorn. But I say to thee, Gandalf Mithrandir, I will not be thy tool. I am steward of the house of Anarion. I will not step down to the dotard chamberlain of an upstart. Even were his claim proved to me, still he comes but of the line of Isildur. I will not bow to such a one, last of a ragged house, long bereft of lordship and dignity. Clinton, there's another line for you to memorize. These are insults you just want to use somehow, I love that line. Last of a ragged house, long bereft of lordship and dignity. What then would you have, said Gandalf, if your will could have its way? Now, watch what Denethor says, because I can imagine somebody else saying this. Look what he says. I would have things as they were in all the days of my life, and in the days of my long fathers before me, to be the lord of this city in peace, and leave my chair to a son after me who would be his own master, and no wizard's pupil. But if doom denies this to me, then I will have naught, neither life diminished, nor love halved, nor honor abated. Now, at least the first half of the speech sounds like something that who would say?
Something that an elf would say. He just wants things to be.
Oh, but the same, right? But who specifically wants it to be a city of peace like it used to be? Who says that? I want it as it used to be. It's actually Faramir says that. Remember? I love not the sword for its sharpness or the arrow. I love only what they... But then he goes on to like madness. But I mention that because, again, Tolkien says that he's more like Faramir, which in one sense is kind of hard to believe. But here, that's what he wants, but he goes about it the wrong way. He goes about it madness, and he gives into despair. Again, I don't want him to be a wizard's pupil. And look at the great answer of Gandalf here. To me, it would not seem that a steward who faithfully surrenders his charge is diminished in love or in honor. There's a very important character in the New Testament who says, I must this, he must this. Yeah, very good. Who says that? John the Baptist. I must decrease, he, Jesus, must increase. Right? And I think Tolkien would know these things, have them in mind. Go ahead.
Most people read over this because it's just like one little line and you hard to catch it. It's in Luke 11:1 and 2, I think. Jesus describes him as the greatest man ever born of a woman.
That's true. He does say that. Yeah.
It's so strange for him to say that.
Yeah.
A guy like dressed in camel hair.
That's true. Yep.
But he lived out his purpose perfectly.
Perfect. He's the last and greatest of the prophets, of the Old Testament. He's the last. And it seemed, I don't know if you read it this way too, but greater is the least in my kingdom, maybe because, now after Christ we have the Holy Spirit indwelling us. There's different ways of reading that exactly. But he's he's the very end of the Old Testament, if you will. Everybody, from Samuel to Ezekiel to Elijah, to Elisha, all summed up in that. And we don't realize what an amazing thing that is. That's like the pastor of a megachurch saying, okay, I'm giving this up to this, guy over here who didn't even go to seminary. Okay, I'm going to give it over to him. And remember, Jesus was John the Baptist's Cousin, okay? That's a big deal too. Right? You want to give it up to your cousin? Right, come on. And John the Baptist was older, only by 6 months, but still, he was the older one. And cousins, you're going to rule over, hey, I'm 6 months older than you. That's like a twin saying, hey, I'm 5 minutes older than you. Listen to me. Funny stuff. But anyway, did somebody in this class have a twin?
I have twin brothers. I'm not a twin.
Oh, you're not a twin. You have a twin brother. I was just thinking of somebody said something about there being a twin. That surprised me. Interesting.
I think Anthony might be my twin.
I think you're your twin. You're a dark twin. You're your doppelganger. Yep.
He's the evil, and I'm the light.
There we go. Hey, you have to, whatever you want to say. He's gone now. You can jump in there.
Exactly. I'm talking about him when he's not here. When he walks in, everybody can snicker.
Oh my Lord. Anyway, he springs forward. Okay, and then Denethor, he leaps on the pyre, and it says, then Denethor leaped upon the table, and standing there, wreathed in fire and smoke, he took up the staff of his stewardship. Again, he refuses to lay it aside. He won't give it up. He won't be John the Baptist. That lay at his feet and broke it on his knee. Casting the pieces into the blaze, he bowed and laid himself on the table, clasping the palantir with both hands upon his breast. And then I love this line. And it was said that ever after, if any man looked in that stone, unless he had a great strength of will to turn it to other purpose, he saw only 2 aged hands withering in flame. And impressed upon it. Okay? Destruction. And then, right after the space break, we get that great line, so passes Denethor, son of... It's so much better in the movie, because in the movie, he's like, ah! And he jumps off and he falls for like 2 days, ah, burning! And then the camera cuts, so passes Denethor. But at last steward of God. It's just so great the way they do it.
I wouldn't have made it that far. You wouldn't have made it all the way to the end of that little bridge.
Wait, what do you mean? Oh, you wouldn't have joined? What do you mean? Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, he's burning in flame and stuff like that. And
Well, if he was doused in oil, so...
Yeah, that's true. Whew. Of course, those people that do, they're the ones that set themselves on fire. They can put certain oil or something that protects their skin. That they do it fast or something. So. Is it it's alcohol that does it? Okay. Let's not try. Please do not try this at home. Right?
But you can, if you do it fast enough, it'll just burn the alcohol
And you'll be okay. And then you stop. Okay, that's what it is. Yeah, that's like. Is that going to be your other job if this one doesn't come through? You're gonna juggle fire and all.
No, I can't juggle.
You ever been to the Renaissance Festival? Watch the firewalkers at night? Those are awesome. They're coming along and... What's that? Oh, by the way, remember they get the whip, the fire whip and stuff like that? It's awesome.
I need to go to the Renaissance with fun people. I hope I'm wrong.
It's just so much fun. Whew. Oh, that'd be cool. I love it. It's just great stuff. The hands of the king are the hands of a healer. That's also messianic, right? Now, that goes back to the old days, like in the Middle Ages, they often said that the hands of the king healed something. You know what it is? I'd be really impressed if you've ever heard this. There was like a skin disease. It wasn't leprosy, but it was a skin disease called scrofula. What's it? Like skin, yeah, like that, right? Yeah. And for some reason, the idea was that the kingly touch would heal that. Right? Good? No, weird, but yeah, that's like a long time ago. You've heard that.
Oh my
God. And any of you that have ever read Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis? That's a hard one and a strange one, but the girl that ends up becoming the sacrificial victim, there's a point where she's touching people and healing them. And then they all turn against her, just like they turn against Jesus. But here again, it's very messianic. He touches them and they're healed. And we watch him, one by one, Mary, Eowyn, and Faramir. He saves all of them, but he doesn't just heal them like a doctor. He calls them back out of the darkness. Right? He beckons them, return into the light. And it's amazing that Tolkien takes the time to watch him go one after another, all 3 of them, because this is part of his messianic status that identifies him, that he is a healer. And that was kind of like a prophecy. That you'll know the king, the hands of the the king foil, right? And the one guy, the male doctor, not the female one, but the male doctor is like, oh, that's just a shrub, that's a weed, right? And he's like, be quiet, don't judge a book by its cover, right? And we saw that king's foil before, Athalas. Remember when it was used before? Yeah, good. When Frodo gets stabbed at Weathertop, that's what they go get, and he puts some of that to slow the poison, right? But again, you can't judge a book by its cover, right? Not all that is gold does not glitter. Remember, all that is gold does not glitter. The hands of the king, right? Oh my gosh. Oh, it's on page, let's see, 860. I'll find it. The hands of the king are the hands of a healer. You guys writing me good papers? I know you are. You writing me good papers next week? Good papers? No, you. You guys have 2 weeks to your... You look nervous for a second. Now you guys got 2 weeks until you unveil. I've already got a sneak peek at Clinton's really cool drawing. Whew. Good stuff. I already sent it on to my kids. They were impressed.
Oh, nice.
They already said it. This is good stuff.
Nice.
Oh.
Are we doing the final exam earlier?
That's right, yeah. Are you going to be able to do the final exam in 2 weeks? In other words, the same time they're doing it, and we'll do exactly the same thing. It'll be 4 essays, and what's it? Yeah, I'll do that again. Does that work? Yeah, I'll do that same thing. Oh, then, okay, good. I'll do that then. Yeah, 3 to 9 again, and it will be 4 essays, just the second half. And one of the essays will have to do with Beowulf. It'll have to do with my outline about Beowulf. Whatever we talked about. And it'll make an open book again. Why not? It's nice. They want to be stressed. Yeah, so that's in 2 weeks. Yeah, and that's good. Yeah, if you can take it earlier and then come and watch these guys in action. And this is like this is like your swan song, man. I mean, you've already done your show, so this is like the real end here, except for Chris. It's pretty cool stuff.
Except for you, Chris.
He's got another year.
Not you, buddy. You're nowhere near done.
You're nowhere near death. This may be one of the only master's programs in America where most of the students don't want to graduate. Wouldn't you all like another year? Most of the MFAs I talk to are like, I want to stay another year.
I want to.
Yeah.
I'd like to double masters and get one in sculpture.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I've taken.
Hey, Clinton, you should stay another year so you can take my class, and then you can continue guiding the new first years. Do we need a stretch break? All right, just get up and stretch. Okay. Oh my gosh, we'll make it. Feel free to run to the bathroom and come back. Let's keep going. It's good stuff. Is it a little cold? It's a little cold. I would be cold, but I'm teaching. This almost looks like Wonder Woman.
It's Captain Marvel.
Oh, it's Captain Marvel. Oh, it's Captain Marvel. Okay. Are we getting another Captain Marvel? Hello? At some point? Oh, yeah. You will be the top of the food chain. Good stuff. Good stuff. We'll get you there right away, so you're going to start. Well, I've had Paul at all 4 semesters. Yeah, Paul is all 4 semesters. Yeah. He's the only one.
Have you teaching?
Oh, the Greeks and Romans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys were just talking about.
Yeah, we've been Dante or
Good
Dante.
I would love to.
This will be interesting.
I'd love to have you talk about that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. But have you already got a curriculum out that you which you can teach in the fall?
Yeah, basically, I'll send it to you. It's only one book, Father's Metamorphosis. It's a book, it's really expensive. And then the next one is just the Bible. So again, it's not going to cost much money this year for you guys. Just that one book. And we're just going to work our way through that book, and then we'll be doing all. But half of the time we'll be looking at PowerPoints. So it's very different. I've got PowerPoints I put together of all famous images from the Middle Ages, Renaissance, all that sort of stuff. And we'll be doing. And then we're going to have to spend a lot more time on the oral reports, right? Because you guys, there's only 6 of you, there's gonna be 13. So I'm gonna have to do 2 days of oral reports for each one, right? So it's gonna be like 6 days of oral reports. So a lot of it will be even more of a workshop for you. It's just 13. Yeah, we'll sort of do the same kind of thing we did here.
Okay.
Yeah, but it'll be based on mythology. So it'll be the same format.
Do we have 6 of them?
No, okay, no, we have 3 here?
Yes.
Right? But since there's only 6 of you all, we can do you all in one class. And now there's 13, so I'm gonna have to spend 2 classes each time.
It's
You
gonna be
understand?
like,
Yeah,
you.
that's what I mean. I'm gonna have to take kind of 6 classes. So that, but then hopefully I'll get more of a workshop. Yeah, but that's just too much. To me, that's one of the most important things, I want you guys to interact with. So
Yeah.
I'll probably do 7 and 6 or something. Even if there's extra time, we'll like 2. But yes.
So this time, the last time we do our presentation, we're not gonna.
Well, no, we'll do that here, but what I'd like to do, if people want to, is maybe next Wednesday, maybe the next Wednesday, we just have a potluck and fun. I'll mention those. We'll see if people want to do that. Yeah, so, yeah. We'll have fun. This one, you can really have this one worry about presenting. Just come and we'll all bring food and I'll mention it. See if I want to do that. I guess that would be 3 weeks.
Present, we're not bring food here.
So yeah, next we're gonna have because I'm close. This was nice that I'm close.
Yeah, you are, is it obstacle?
They will hopefully won't be remember last year, it was pouring rain. And we did it, yeah. It was late too, yeah.
I've got storage.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Came like 2 hours.
That's right, I forgot that. You got this, huh?
I look forward to it.
That was funny.
So you gonna be, okay, I know you say you teach in the fall, but in the spring, you
In the spring, it's the same thing that you do the Bible. That's really good. So that in this fall, it's going to be Greek mythology, Roman mythology, but then it's going to be the Bible. You enjoy that. And then I'll just tell people just read whatever Bible you have. So you don't have to buy anything.
Yeah.
And spend your money on art supplies.
Yeah, there's so many Bible.
Oh yeah, we're going to look at. I've already made these huge PowerPoints of from the Genesis, of the patriarchs, of the Exodus, and the exile and stuff. It's going to be the alpha male.
No. There's no beta here, buddy. I don't walk into a room and anyone assume I'm a beta. That never happens. Follow the leader.
Have you seen this thing up yet? It's really good. You like the part when he makes a ship?
Made the ship. I like the dragon. I like
You do that too?
No.
No, yeah. Blow the smoke out. Blow the smoke out.
I put gold on his head.
Yeah, that would be a nice idea.
It's like blowing on her.
Get together one last time.
That'd be more fun. We just relax and enjoy.
One last time
Celebrate.
before they. Farewell.
Most of it's probably vaccinated by then.
Yeah, well, I know HB said what, June 1st?
June 1st anyway, they're just saying that's it. No more.
Have you got yours?
June, yeah, I got mine.
June 1st.
June 1st, starting June 1st, HB said we don't have to worry about masks, social distancing.
Son of a.
Not that there's many, classes on campus. But yeah, they announced it a few weeks ago, starting June 1st.
And they're smart though, 'cause they're doing the summer classes just
Yeah,
to see.
yeah, most of which
You
are
know,
online
if it-
anyway.
If it
Yeah.
spike up, then it's, oh, okay, well, in the fall, you know, which is good, 'cause I'm pretty sure you've got yours. You got Pfizer?
I got Pfizer.
I got Pfizer.
I got Pfizer.
You're making snowballs.
Although I think, yeah, you should have knocked it out.
The second one kicked my.
Yeah.
The second one kicked my wife.
Because you have it?
I think it's because I had it before. My wife has never had it, and all 5 of we're a 6-member family. And all 5 of the members had it. She got shot. Her second shot on Sunday, Saturday and Sunday she was toast. Like she was so sick. Yeah. She even had a fever the Monday, about today. She didn't realize it until someone walked into her office and they were like, whoa. She's like, go to the nurse. The nurse like, the temperature, like 100.
Oh, that's what I like. Spikes. Yeah, spikes up here. The books.
What is this? What do we have?
He's buying books.
Selling books?
He's
You're
selling.
selling books?
Yeah.
I can't give books away. It's not good.
These are great books. Well, see,
These are good.
both she and her about-to-be husband were in the same program, so they have 2 sets of books. Let me sell some books.
I'm just picking at scabs.
That's why they have Galileo there. Good stuff.
I'm trying to know like
Oh, that's right.
It was sort of fun though. You make them.
And you know about his famous monogram.
She was in it.
Monogram signature. It's a J, 2 R's, and a T.
Who did that?
You stalking?
That was like his well, it was like it's still signed, remember, that's like his monogram.
Yes.
What you gonna get?
Yeah, that'd be a cool thing to put in your paintings, yeah. Because of the monogram.
I just got.
Already got it.
I'm starting out with
I was thinking about
Shire. Yeah.
it.
That's what he loves, the Shire, that's for sure.
You will be behind the
Oh, yeah, I went. It's good stuff. Yeah, you have to.
They're like $1.
That's more important.
Yeah, just one day, half a day, really.
There were some good, I got like Francis Schaefer books there.
Hey, there's just some good stuff.
7 or 8 to read.
You got a suitcase full of
Announce it very well. It's like
And it too.
in one maybe like weekly announcement.
All right, folks. Now this is not a requirement, but if you want, okay. So next week, next Wednesday, is going to be our last. We'll finish the Lord of the Rings as much as we can. Then the Wednesday after that, the MFAs will be giving their last oral report. You guys will be doing your final exam. And the Wednesday after that, when we would normally do our final, if you want, we did this last time. We can have like a potluck dinner at my house. If you want to come, you don't have to come. If you want to come, we had a lot of fun. And we all made, Paula made the best food, but everybody brought something.
How many people can I bring?
Oh, yeah, bring some people too. Yeah, like your fiance. Well, who else would you want to bring?
Possibly Leia, and I'll ask the others.
Yeah, I guess they could if they want. Fun. We can sing songs if you want. It'd be fun. I've got a big dining room table, but I've also got a big deck outside.
Chris doesn't count.
What's that? Oh man!
Oh, did that slip out? It just came right out. I wasn't even thinking about it. I have no inner monologue.
So anyway, think about it. We'll have a potluck dinner, and I don't know what time we would start. Well, 6. Oh, maybe we can start at 6, a little bit earlier than 6:30. But it's too late.
So you might want to tell Clinton that it starts at 3.
Okay, I'll see that.
Oh man!
You'll have a second kid.
Anyway. What's that? So in other words, 3 weeks from today. And think Tabitha can come too. If she wants. We've got room, I think, by then.
I just remember that the dessert was really good.
Did you? Oh, you made. Wait. Oh no, wait. Who brought the? Did Clinton or you brought
I
it?
didn't bring a thing. I just brought myself.
But somebody did bring some good dessert. What was it? Did you bring the dessert? Or did maybe Lupe? No. Yeah, she's good. She's really good.
No, he bought the sausage.
Oh, that's right. It was good food. I remember. So we'll think about that. Okay, but just let me think. I'll remind you. But think in 3 weeks from maybe starting at 6 instead of 6:30, and just going whenever. And we can sing songs if you want. I'll play the piano. Hopefully. What's that? 3 weeks from today.
And then follows it in
I mean, you're done with this class. Wait a minute. No. You have to be all done by Monday. Yeah. You'll be completely done because you're graduating senior. That's right. That's right. Are we ready? Let's look at as things fall apart, the center cannot hold. By the way, it is kind of cold. Okay, when they take the athelas, the king's foil, and he uses the word, but this is the technical word. Okay, when oftentimes to release the medicinal stuff of the herb, if you're a good witch, you have to crush it. Okay, right? A good crushing, right? A good witch or bad, good witch at all. And did you see the word that's used for when you crush it? The word that's often used is you bruise it, which is very powerful because that's kind of messianic too, like the bruises or the stigmata. You bruise it and it releases its fragrance, right? Just wonderful. It's explained. Let me see. Here it is. What's that? Here it is. It's page. Clearly his superpower. On page 864, the top of page 864, he says, Era, that's the talkative lady. Well, if your lordship had named it at first, I could have told you. No, we have none of it, I'm sure. The king's foil, I said. Here it is. 'Tis a strange name, and I wonder why 'tis called so. For if I were a king, I would have plants more bright in my garden. I love it. Still, it smells sweet when bruised, does it not? If sweet is the right word, wholesome maybe is nearer. Wholesome verily. And now, dame, if you love the Lord Faramir, run as quick as your tongue and get me kingful. It's really funny. It kind of goes on and on. But they don't talk to many people back there in the houses of healing, so they're getting kind of tired. It's like working in the nursery. You just want to talk, like human speech. Anyway, but again, that wonderful. And look at the poem on page 865. Here's a poem about the athelas. When the black breath blows, right? That's that evil breath that comes from Mordor. When the black breath blows and death's shadow grows and all lights pass. Come athelas, life to the dying in the king's hand lying. So again, the royal touch, this common-looking plant that is bruised and gives out fragrance is linked to the healing hand of the messianic king. Wonderful stuff, right? And they describe what happens when he crushes it. Farther down the page, towards the bottom, Aragorn smiled, it will serve, the worst is now over. And he says, then taking 2 leaves, he laid them on his hands and breathed on them. Wonderful. And you remember, some of Jesus's miracles, sometimes he takes clay and spits on it, puts it in the eyes or the ears. Sometimes he'll do things like that. It's always different. But it says, he breathed on them and then he crushed them. And straightway a living freshness filled the room, as if the air itself awoke and tingled, sparkling with joy. And then he cast the leaves into the bowls of steaming water that were brought to him, and all at once hearts were lightened, for the fragrance that came to each was like a memory of dewy mornings of unshadowed sun, in some land of which the fair world in spring is itself but a fleeting memory. And these are beautiful, it's gorgeous, these things, right? Some might remember it. And he took out of his pocket the apple of life. And suddenly all the colors in the room seemed dim. And the smell of the apple was as if there was a window in the room. And it opened on heaven. You know where that's from? That's it. It's from Narnia, but you know where? It's the magician's nephew. It's the very end when Diggory gives the apple to his mother and heals him. I just love that image. The smell of it was as if there was a window in the room and it opened on heaven. Again, it's beautiful stuff. Again, he is bringing light back. Again, take them out of the darkness, right? And again, we see how difficult it was for Éowyn. Okay, for Ellie here. Okay, very top of page 867, Gandalf is trying to explain how difficult it was for Éowyn. My friend, said Gandalf, he's talking to Éomer, You had horses and deeds of arms in the free fields, but she, born in the body of a maid, had a spirit and courage at least a match of yours. Yet she was doomed to wait upon an old man, of course that's Theoden, whom she loved as a father, and watch him falling into a mean, dishonored dotage. And her part seemed to her more ignoble than that of the staff he leaned on. Think you that Wormtongue had poison only for Theoden's ears? And then remember, Theoden said, Wormtongue, well, actually this is really what Saruman says from the tower. Dotard, what is the house of Eorl but a thatched barn where brigands drink in the reek and their brats roll on the floor among their dogs? She's hearing these words too, is what he's saying. All of these things are eating away at Eowyn. Have you not heard these words before? Saruman spoke them, the teacher of Wormtongue, though I do not doubt that Wormtongue at home wrapped their meaning in terms more cunning. My lord, if your sister's love for you and her will, still bent to her duty, had not restrained her lips, you might have heard even such things as these escape them. But who knows what she spoke to the darkness alone in the bitter watches of the night, when all her life seemed shrinking, and the walls of her bower closing in about her, a hutch to trammel some wild thing in. Told you, those words are put in the mouth of Wormtongue in the movie, who says them to her. And what did we find out? There's only one thing Eowyn fears, and that is the cage. Okay? So she felt there, alone, isolated. Then Eomer was silent, and looked on his sister as if pondering anew all the days of their past life together. But Aragorn said, I saw also what you saw, Eomer. Few other griefs amid the ill chances of this world have more bitterness and shame for a man's heart than to behold the love of a lady so fair and brave that cannot be returned. Is that a gentleman? Okay? There's a gentleman. He cannot return it because his heart already belongs to Arwen. But again, beautiful. Sorrow and pity have followed me ever since I left her desperate in Dunharrow and rode to the paths of the dead, and no fear upon that was so present as the fear for what might befall her. And yet, Eomer, I say to you that she loves you more truly than me. For you she loves and knows, but in me she loves only a shadow and a thought, a hope of glory and great deeds, and lands far from the fields of Rohan. What she loves in Aragorn is his kingliness and wanting to be part of those deeds. But Eomer is, has been her, companion for their whole life, right? The two, right? Beautiful stuff. Cold and frosty. Anyway, more and more, awake, come out of the darkness. He does it again and again. And then when Merry gets better, Merry says, I don't think I'll ever smoke again now that Theoden is gone. And what is he told? No, smoke in memory of him. And then, of course, Aragorn pretends like he lost his... He says, where's my bag? Did you think I was going to pick up your bag? Hey, I got to show you because it's so funny. He says, this is page 869. He says, about halfway down the page, smoke then and think of him, for he was a gentle heart and a great king and kept his oaths, and he rose out of the shadows to a last fair morning. Though your service to him was brief, it should be a memory glad and honorable to the end of your days. Merry smiled. Okay. If Strider will provide what is needed, I will smoke and think. I had some of Saruman's best in my pack, but what became of it in the battle I am sure I don't know. Master Meriadoc, if you think that I have passed through the mountains and the realm of Gondor with fire and sword to bring herbs to a careless soldier who throws away his gear, you are mistaken. All the time, it's right there, right? But this is funny because it's very similar to Gandalf saying, I have not passed through fire and water to bandy words with a serving man until the lightning fall. It's almost like a funny version of that. So, they sort of lampoon each other in a way. It was very funny. But the king, and look at the end of the chapter on page 871. At the end of the second to last paragraph, here's a great theological statement. Let's see what you make of this, Bill. This is a great theological statement. He comes, and it says, the king is come again indeed. And they, the people of Gondor, and they named him Elfstone because of the green stone that he wore. And so the name which it was foretold at his birth that he should bear was chosen for him by his own people. That's out there for a wonderful, the whole paradox of free will and predestination, okay? So the thing that was predestined at his birth would be his title, was given freely by his own people. It's a wonderful way of sort of bringing together the paradox and the mystery and trying to understand it, right? Then they have the last debate, right? That means getting ready. And look at page 873. This is a wonderful little piece. Too bad they couldn't have slipped this into the movie. This is a little dialogue between Legolas and Gimli, who are becoming better and better friends as we go along. And it's page 873. They're talking to this guy Imrahil. He doesn't really do too much, but it says, okay, Legolas says, top of 873, "That is a fair lord and a great captain of men," said Legolas. "If Gondor has such men still in these days of fading, great must have been its glory in the days of its rising." Here the elf and the elf and the dwarf in awe of men. They're still a strange race to them, right? How great they must have been in their golden days. And the dwarf says, "And doubtless the good stonework is the older and was wrought in the first building." Now, but then he says, "It is ever so with the things that men begin. There is a frost in spring or a blight in summer, and they fail of their promise." Is that somehow true of our species? We never quite finish, we never quite finish things, right? The blight comes. But Legolas says, "Yet seldom do they fail of their seed." One thinks of the seed of Abraham and the seed of Christ, right? That still, it's like we mess up, and yet somehow hope remains. "And that will lie in the dust and rot, to spring up again in times and places unlooked for. The deeds of men will outlast us, Gimli. We creatures with our 70 years, making our meager things, will somehow last. And the elves and the dwarves have passed away. And yet come to naught in the end, but might have beens, I guess." To that the elves know not the answer. Because the elves don't know what happens to us after we die, when we escape from the cycles of this world. One of the first things I try to teach my kids, one of my very favorite musicals is Camelot. You ever seen Camelot? It's based on the Once and Future King. And it's Arthur trying to build Camelot and building all these great ideas, right? And then it's destroyed, right? And then, if you've ever seen the musical, it has the greatest ending. It's the whole reason why the guy wrote it, Lerner and Lowe. And everything's fallen apart. The adultery's happened, all that sort of stuff. And Arthur's giving into despair. And then he sees this little boy running through the camp. "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I've come to be a knight." You've come to be a knight? Is your father a knight? Is your brother a knight? Did your father ever rescue a maiden? He says, "No." "Well, how do you know about knights?" he says. "Well, from all the stories that I've heard." Right? And then he realizes, and what he sings at the end, the words are, he says to the boy, "I'm giving you a new commission. Your commission," he dubs him, "is to survive. You need to run behind the lines, and you need to carry on the story." And he says to him, "Each evening from December to December, before you drift to sleep upon your cot, think back on all the tales that you remember of Camelot. Ask every person if he's heard the story, and say it loud and clear if he has not, that once there was a fading wisp of glory called Camelot." Right? And he said, "Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot for one brief shining moment that was known as Camelot." So, and I made my kids, because I said, this is what it means to be human, right? We're made in God's image, but we're fallen. Okay, so that means we're going to try to build noble things, and we're going to do well, but then they're going to fall. Okay, but then somehow we'll build them again. And to really be human is to keep building it, but knowing that it's going to fall. Right? Because if we don't know what's going to fall, we're going to try to build a utopia and kill millions of people, like they did in Russia and China and Cambodia and everywhere else, and starting in France. But if we don't keep trying to build it, then what are we? Okay, we've lost our specialness, right? And by the way, when that play was performed at the end of 1963 or the beginning of 1964, when they got to that last part and said, "Don't let it be forgot that once there was a spot called Camelot," apparently the whole audience broke down in tears. You know why? Do you know who referred to his presidency as Camelot? It was Kennedy, right? And then I was reading about it. I wasn't alive then. Well, I was alive. I was 2 months. I was born 2 months after. I was born 2 months after Kennedy died. Which remember, it was the same day Lewis died, November 22nd, 1963, and they said that everybody. I was reading the memoirs that they all broke down in tears because it went down. So anyway. Except in that case, it wasn't his wife that was unfaithful. It was John F. Kennedy himself. But anyway, we'll go there. Marilyn Monroe and everybody else. Does anybody know after he died who his wife married? Jackie Onassis? I just gave it away by saying that. Yes, he married Onassis, the Greek guy, Aristotle Onassis, famous shipping magnate, one of the most richest people in the world back then. They made a movie about it called The Greek Tycoon with Anthony Quinn. It's pretty good. That's the scene that Greeks can never live down, because in that movie is when they start breaking the plates. And when you're Greek, everybody, do you break plates? No, we don't break plates. We know that. But, there are some clubs that will let you do that in New York City, and they'll charge you for every single one of them, believe me. But anyway. But some people still do that, in places, maybe even in Russia, when you drink your toast, and then you throw your wine glasses, champagne glasses into the fire. That's still done in some places. Do they do that in Iran? Well, first of all, they shouldn't be drinking if they're in Iran. But anyway, and throw that that sparkling grape juice. That's what Baptists have. They have sparkling cider or whatever like that. Actually, there seems to be a growing love of this hard cider. I guess it's alcoholic, but not too much. It's like apple cider, but it's a little bit give you a little buzz or something. Is that your drug of choice, Daniel?
No, my drug of choice is any hot vanilla. Yeah, I'll drink pretty much.
Now, the drug of choice for the Baptist, a lot of actually, but well, there was a while when when the students, the Baptist students that didn't drink but they needed to stay up all night, their drug of choice was chocolate covered. What do you call that? Coffee beans. Yeah, chocolate covered.
Espresso beans.
Espresso beans, that's it, thank you. Chocolate covered espresso beans, yep, that's it. You eat those, okay.
My grandmother ate some one time. She thought they were like jelly beans or something.
Did she go wild?
Eating them, they're like, they're really good.
Did she start jumping up and down? And
more coffee than you had. I'm like,
it's really funny. Anyway. But isn't that beautiful, though? Will we last? Will we outlast them? Who knows? What will happen to us? But I love that idea. Just like the camera pulls back and we let the dwarf and elf wonder about us, right? Just like when the Bible says that angels long to look into these things, right? They don't understand, what the Christ will do and stuff like that. And there's have you heard of Michael Heiser, The Unseen Realm? He's suggesting that one of the reasons they kept it so secret is so the devil would be fooled, right? Because the devil played his role in getting Judas and everybody else to put Christ on the cross. And there's a suggestion that, Jesus doesn't say much about it so that the devil would realize this is the last thing he wants to do. You fooled him into it. Remember who fools somebody by saying, you can do anything you want to me, just don't throw me in the briar patch? No, you're close. You're getting there. Go on.
You can no longer get that movie about it.
That's right. It's considered politically incorrect. It's Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox. Yeah. That's right. You can't. No, they put. I have a copy because I burned it off of YouTube once a long time ago. I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but Song of the South. But anyway. Well, I don't know. It's personal use. That's how I get away with it. I watch it off of YouTube. That's right. I love that. And what I really love about the people that do that, they always go on and on about how you're hurting the artist. They don't give the artist a dime. They're worried about their big mega corporation. Apparently even the big, well, maybe not the Beatles, but even the really big rock stars, they still make all their money by doing concerts. Apparently, even they don't make much money from the what do you call it, royalties from the albums and stuff like that. That's where you make all the money. You have to. Yeah.
Artists to the record companies, and like with what is the one? Not Pandora, the one.
Oh, right, yeah.
Spotify.
Spotify.
Penny every time it's played to the artist, and that's split
Oh, wow. So it's not a lot. There we go. It's just, I don't know. How do you make it? Okay, so then we see the whole scene again where we get to hear more about what happened when they took over the Corsairs, and again, all of the amazing stuff. They're terrified. They leap overboard. Aragorn sets them free, and all that stuff. We talked about that. Look at here's something to meditate on. Look at page 879. This is such a great line. This didn't make it into the movie, but it's a great line. Again, what do we do? What are we responsible for? And this is very important, especially since we live in an age now that because of social media, we know everything that's going on in the world all around us, right? Or at least all the misery in the world around us, right? And what do we do, right? Right? Now we already had that very important scene when the three runners, when Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas meet Éomer. And he's like, how does one decide in a world like this? The same way we've always decided. Right is right and wrong is wrong in the cave or in the palace, right? But here's another way of, putting things in perspective. Okay, what shall we do? And, they're getting ready to say that they're going to, charge at the Black Gate. But page 879 is the second paragraph. He says, other evils there are that may come. For Sauron is himself but a servant or emissary. And ultimately, the big bad guy was Morgoth, although he's locked up on the outside of the world. But anyway, other evils there are that may come, for Sauron is himself but a servant. Yet it is not our part to master all the tides of the world, but to do what is in us for the succor of those years wherein we are set, uprooting the evil in the fields that we know, so that those who live after may have clean earth to till. What weather they shall have is not ours to rule. That's our job, to do right now what's given to us in our sphere. Right? I mean, Jesus certainly preached to the people that were close to him. He didn't have, media or something like that. Okay? You take care of the people in your circle, in your sphere. You try to clean the earth that is yours and leave a good legacy. But it's not for us to know everything that will come, right? Of course, this is somewhat similar to the earliest part of the story when he said, right, that is not ours to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Right? It's important. So we don't think that we're going to change everything. God gives us our sphere, and we do what we can in our sphere, right? I've often said to students, and this is myself too, you might be really upset because maybe your parents don't know Jesus, right? And you pray, but there's only so much you can do, right? I mean, preaching to your parents is kind of hard. In certain cultures, it's almost impossible, okay, because they're your parents. But I've always felt that if you are responsible to reach out to your peers, to those people that are your age, your culture, whatever it is, then you pray that somebody that's a peer to your parent will reach out to them. Right? We can't do everything, but we are responsible for what is given us, right? So that, I think I mentioned before, the parable of the talents. One guy gets 2 talents and makes 2 more. One gets 5 talents and makes 5 more. One gets 2 talents and makes 2 more. And they both get exactly the same blessing. Well done, thy good and faithful servant, because they both made full use of what was given to them. Like I said, I don't know why it is, but God gives some of us 5 talents. He gives some of us 3 talents. He gives some of us 1 talent, and then he made the Aggies. Anyway, I haven't had a good Aggie joke in a while. Okay, anyways. Oh, I tell you. I got together with that Aggie dude that came to our Bible study. Actually, I'm talking to him. I think maybe I just need to find a good Aggie for my daughter. Because these are good, reliable guys, usually these Aggie guys. I make fun of the Aggies, but they're the salt of the earth, man. So, what's that? Yeah, that was the guy with Alpha, Chi Alpha? Chi Alpha, that's what it's called. It's like a Christian fraternity, but not like Bucks. They do that. It's really confusing when they talk about fraternities. What's a fraternity? What's not? Social fraternity as opposed to this? Whatever. Okay, let's keep going. So again, just remember that, okay? There were always, but our job is to till the field that is given to us. Right? And then, what do they need to do on page 880? They need to make themselves the bait. Can somebody quote, is one of my son's favorite lines, what's the quote that Gimli says about, chance of death, very, very, very large? What do you say? Certainty of death?
Probability of success.
What are we waiting for? It's not in there, but it kind of fits. It's like, all right, let's go. What the heck? Come on, let's go. Anyway, he says, this is page 880, about the second paragraph. As Aragorn has begun, so we must go on. We must push Sauron to his last throw. He used a lot of these wonderful gaming metaphors. We must call out his hidden strength so that he shall empty his land. We must march out to meet him at once. We must make ourselves the bait, though his jaws should close on us. He will take that bait in hope and in greed, for he will think that in such rashness he sees the pride of the new ring lord. And he will say, so, he pushes out his neck too soon and too far. Let him come on, and behold, I will have him in a trap from which he cannot escape. There I will crush him, and what he has taken in insolence shall be mine again forever. We must walk open-eyed into that trap, with courage, but small hope for ourselves. For my lords, it may well prove that we ourselves shall perish utterly in a black battle far from the living lands, so that even if Barad-dûr be thrown down, we shall not live to see a new age. But this, I deem, is our duty, and better so than to perish nonetheless, as we surely shall if we sit here and know as we die that no new age shall be. That's courage. That still is. It's a little Beowulf fatalism, but a little more hope maybe mixed in there. And do you understand why is Sauron going to take the bait when they attack the Black Gates? Good. He thinks that this is such a rash, stupid thing to do that it must be that one of them, say Aragorn, put on the ring and in his rashness attacked, and let's get them now when they're weak. Because they end up bringing like 3,000 people or something. It's like impossible. Right? And in the movie, you see him completely circled around. And by the way, do you know in the original version of the movie, and I'm glad they changed their mind, Aragorn was going to fight Sauron. Sauron was going to show up in that, but he didn't really have a body anymore. But he was going to show up, and they filmed it that way. But then they realized, no, that's just not true to the book. It doesn't work. And so they just digitally went over him, and it becomes the troll. Because remember, in the movie, he fights a troll, like a big cave troll or something. But that originally, and there's some image, if you get the special edition, to see what it looked like. It was Sauron at once. But anyway, and of course, the movie, the book does not have that great speech, right? Someday the race of men will fall, but that day is not today. That's a great speech. Anyway. So many memes, yeah, you're right. So anyway, they're going to move into the trap. And off they go, and the Black Gate opens, and we meet the voice of Sauron. That again, it's the movie that comes up with that. The book doesn't actually say that. And the thing, all you see is that big, ugly, hideous mouth. Now, the weird thing is that's almost the way the horse is described here. And I think maybe that's where they got the idea. But he comes out and he offers terms, right? Yeah, we'll do this. And now you got to remember, the first time you read this book, it's kind of scary because the first time you read book 5 and you haven't got to book 6, what does the voice of Sauron show them? Did you get that far? Yeah, Frodo's mithril coat, right? Which suggests he's dead. And of course we find out later he's not. But when you're reading, now they do it in the movie too. But in the movie, we know that he's okay, because obviously they're cutting back and forth. But it's really dark at this point. They don't know, but we're going to fight anyway. But he shows him the mithril code, and, you guys will do this and that. But no, we are going to fight. And they come in, and, it ends with, from Pippin's point of view, with the eagles coming in. The eagles, the eagles, the eagles. Let's just do a little bit of a beginning of book 6. We'll make it next time. Let's just look at, let's see. Skip that. Skip a bit, brother. Let's see. Let's go to page 900. Just do a little bit of this. There we go. We'll make it. Sam has the ring now. Right? We still don't know. He knows on page 900. Or actually, yeah, to the bottom of page 900. So he puts on the ring, right? And it says, towards the bottom, the ring, as it drew near the great furnaces where in the deeps of time it had been shaped and forged, the ring's power grew, and it became more fell, untamable save by some mighty will. As Sam stood there, even though the ring was not on him, but hanging by its chain about his neck, he felt himself enlarged, as if he were robed in a huge, distorted shadow of himself. A vast and ominous threat halted upon the walls of Mordor. See, the more serious you take yourself, the more the ring is going to go. Only if you can laugh at yourself, really. Right? If you can step back and say, who do I think I am? But it's close. He felt that he had from now on only two choices: to forbear the ring, in other words, don't put it on, though it would torment him, or to claim it and challenge the power that sat in its dark hold beyond the valley of shadows. Already the ring tempted him, gnawing at his will and reason. The ring. Notice the ring is always capitalized in this book. Wild fantasies arose in his mind, and he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, and armies flocking to his call as he marched to the overthrow of Barad-dûr. We call this delusions of grandeur. By the way, do you know what disease, as it slowly kills people, will give them delusions of grandeur? It's actually syphilis. Okay, now, of course, today we've got penicillin that can cure it. But there are some people that have suggested that certain, like, really crazy warlords that went wild, like Idi Amin, some of them think they might have had syphilis because apparently it gives you delusions of grandeur. That's at least what they told us when I was a kid. But anyway. There are others that do that too. That's true, yeah. But but he's coming in, and then all the clouds rolled away, and the white sun shone, and at his command the vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers, and trees brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring and claim it for his own, and all this could be. Okay, you need to understand that there will be good people that will try to use the ring for good, but it still corrupts you. So what would Sam do with his ring? He would make the world a garden, right? But, and what is it? Galadriel says something to him. That's what it would be in the beginning, right? But it wouldn't end that way, right? And I love it. One of my favorite examples of what somebody who at least thinks themselves sweet would do if they got the ring of power. If somebody took over HBU, they would make everything pink.
What?
You get it? Get the reference?
Oh! Whoever said orange is the new pink was serious.
You know what I'm talking about? What's that? Oh, I didn't even think about Legally Blonde. I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about another fantasy. Probably the most famous fantasy of the 20th century after Lord of the Rings, though it's not that good. Oh, it's pretty good. Is Miss Umbridge, right? Remember Miss Umbridge in Harry Potter? Okay? She takes over Hogwarts, right? And everything's pink. I mean, she wants everything to be beautiful and sweet. But, I guess I find her a very interesting villain, right? Because she's mean, but she's not totally, what's interesting about Miss Umbridge is and I think she means it. She always says, I'm doing everything on behalf of the head of the wizard. I don't know it that well. Was it? The minister. Yeah.
Everything on behalf of order.
Of order. And I think she means that, right? She's doing it. She wants things more orderly and beautiful. But again, she becomes a terrible tyrant. In some ways worse than an evil tyrant because she thinks she's doing it for good. Right? She thinks she's making Hogwarts a better place and it's pretty and all that sort of stuff. Think pink, okay? Think pink. Which Audrey Hepburn movie begins with someone saying, think pink? You remember? You seen Funny Face, the musical? Oh, you haven't seen Funny? That's a good one. That's a musical. And she does her own singing in that one. But yeah, think pink. Everything's pink. Okay. In that hour of, now, what saves him? Okay, Sam. In that hour of trial, two things stop him from putting on the ring and becoming Samwise the Strong Gardener, right? In that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm. So it is that true allegiance, that friendship. But it's another thing. Also, deep down in him lived, still unconquered, his plain hobbit sense. Okay, he's just a good, like we would say, a good down-to-earth person, as we say in America. He knew in the core of his heart that he was not large enough to beat such a burden. To bear such a burden. even if such visions were not a mere cheat to betray him. The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due. Not a garden swollen to a realm, his own hands to use, not the hands of others to command. He just went. Does anybody know what famous story ends with the moral, let us all tend our own garden? Anybody read that? You know? I'd be impressed if you read that. The story is by a guy named Voltaire. Ever heard of Candide? I don't know if they read that anymore. Have you read Candide in some of the class? At the end, that's just sort of the moral of the story. Just tend your own garden. Stop having delusions of this and that and whatnot. And he realizes, no, I'd rather have a small farm I can work and I can work with my own hands, not command other hands to work, is what it's saying. And so that keeps him level-headed. He knows his limits and he knows what's good, and he's not going to overreach and try to have everything. Right? Now, I love this. It goes on. I can't use the ring, and then skip down 2 paragraphs. He was not really in any doubt. He knew that he must go down to the gate and not linger any more. With a shrug of his shoulders, as if to shake off the shadow and dismiss the phantoms, again, of grandeur, it says, he began slowly to descend. With each step, he seemed to diminish. He had not gone far before he had shrunk again to a very small and frightened hobbit. Where have we heard that word diminish used in this context? Galadriel, right? I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. Well, he will remain Sam, a hobbit with just good hobbit sense. As he moves in there, and then, this is something that's not, they don't do much with it, but there are these 2 watchers, these 2 like hideous statues that look a lot like Tash, if you remember the last battle, the god with the vulture head, and he uses the file of Galadriel to break their will, and then he uses them again to come back, right? But I want to end with this. This is a good place to end. Turn to page 908. How does Sam find Frodo in that labyrinthine, palace there? Remember how he finds him? Even I got that far. You remember? How does he find Frodo? He does something. He starts doing something. He starts singing. Good. And do you remember we saw that before? That's how Luthien found Beren when he was not in the big one, Morgoth, but when he was in Sauron's lair, right? And also way back in the beginning, we told you that there was when Medros, one of the sons of Fëanor, was chained up. The good guy of Fingen, what's his name? Or Fingen, I think. He saves him and he finds him by singing, right? So the singing brings them together. And so let's end with that beautiful poem on page 908, the second stanza. Though here at journey's end I lie, in darkness buried deep, beyond all towers strong and high, beyond all mountains steep, above all shadows rides the sun, and stars forever dwell. I will not say the day is done, nor bid the stars farewell. He won't give up. Sam is the perfect embodiment of hope. There in the darkness, he cries out a small song, but it's heard. Frodo hears it. He begins to sing, and then the evil guy, shut up in there! And then he realizes there's a trap door, and that's how he knows where Frodo is. But again, it's beautiful that the music is healing, and the music brings them back together. And of course, as we know from the first class, according to Tolkien, God sang the world into being. Beautiful stuff. We'll make it next week. Good stuff. So, all right. Good job. I'll put this up. I'll put this up, but I won't send it out.